Joint practice day for the Buffalo Bills. They're in Cleveland working with the Browns. And for the Bills, it is a lengthy list of players who are not practicing today or at least not doing teamwork. Ty Johnson, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Skylar Bell, Dante Pettis, Connor McGovern, Ed Oliver, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and Jalen Kilgore. And the Barnes Firm Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Car crash? You've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-MILLION. Before practice today, head coach Joe Brady did speak with the media, and while we don't have any official word yet on if starters are going to play on Saturday, Brady did mention today's practice could determine who does play on Saturday.
Ideal world is a lot of the ones, hey, we get a great day's practice today and we kind of go from there, and I feel like they got the work that they needed, but, I'm not going to make any decisions until I see how this practice kind of goes.
We'll get more on how today's practice went coming up a little bit later on when Sal Capaccio does join the show, so do stay tuned for that. Tonight, 2 preseason games are in action. Vegas at Houston. Kickoff for that one is at 8, and then at 10 o'clock, the Chargers, they host the San Francisco 49ers. And then in baseball, Bison's home versus Lehigh Valley. First pitch for that one, 6:35. Going on right now, Blue Jays are up on Tampa 3-1. That game is in the 7th. And then coming up at 6:35, the Yankees, they are at the Baltimore Orioles. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I gotta wonder what kind of working relationship you'd have with Satan.
It's Mike Schopp.
I've often wondered that. He, they, I don't know what his pronouns are, or their pronoun. Anyway, Satan.
And the Bulldog.
What's the upside of doing well? Well, maybe they're too busy making everyone else's life hell.
Oh, boy.
And
wow.
you might just be able to do your own thing if you're partnered with Satan.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
They're too busy, making Scott Norwood miss field goals.
Oh, come on.
On WGR, Sports Radio 550.
I want to introduce my first guest. You know him from, he's been on WGR many times over the years at his evening show. Now you hear him middays, noon or 1 until 3 o'clock. He was just on. Do you remember the Chris Elliott show?
Yes.
So Chris Elliott, they on Letterman, they came up with the Chris Elliott show. Chris Elliott was like a character, many different characters on Letterman, which to this day, I watch them all the time, and I'm always destroyed by them.
If you don't know who he is, he's Woogie from There's Something About Mary.
Yeah,
also.
Abby Elliott's father, the bear, lots of stuff she's been in.
Okay.
So the Chris Elliott show was a talk show exactly like Letterman's during Letterman, right? So, he'd come out. He basically was just mimicking Letterman, making fun of him. But, then you'd see, they'd have a camera 3. You'd see Dave sitting there at his desk with a cigar. And then, I'd like to introduce my first guest, Linda Carter. I thought I was here to see Dave. So, I feel like this is a little bit adjacent to that. Are you ready for Saturday?
No. I'm
After
more.
all our conversations all week, you're not ready.
No. Well, this is 2 different questions. Am I ready? No. Am I more ready than I've ever been? Yes. Have I downloaded the app that I'm going to use on my computer instead of fighting with everybody else 5 minutes before the draft to download it and get it? I've tested. I've got a mock draft open that I'm working with.
What are you using? May I ask?
Football Guys.
Great. The Draft Dominator.
The Draft Dominator from Football Guys. I've been using that for years, but I don't practice. So I'm in the moment, surrounded by all my friends, and it's time, and I'm always scrambling because we reveal the draft order right before, and then we announce the team names, but instead of the people, so I'm not used to the names being the people yet, and it just gets all weird. So I'm eliminating a variable by learning my way around Draft Dominator before I sit down. Mm-hmm. And even if I don't complete an entire mock draft, I might do 10 of them. I might just do this one. I might stop. But I feel better about I feel better prepared than I have been in the past because you gave me a couple of tidbits over the course of the last week or so. And I've got my thing. I paid for it. And then I already canceled because I only want it for the draft. I don't need Football Guys telling me what to do all year.
Okay.
So I already paid for it and canceled, and I'm good for a month. So that's good. I won't get this. Most years I have to call. It's November. I'm like, hey, you just charged me $20 a month for the last 3 months.
You don't feel bad about that?
I feel great about it.
Okay.
I don't need it. I'm not going to use it.
I can't do that.
You can't what?
I can't subscribe to something and then cancel it immediately on purpose.
You could.
It feels wrong.
It's essentially...
I could, but I would never.
Well, no, it's essentially buying a high-tech version of the magazines we used to buy 20 years ago in the store.
They also sell magazines.
Yeah. Do people buy those still?
I guess because they make them.
But you see it in, like, April, and it's ready.
It's ready right now. I don't know when it was. I think it was finalized maybe like a month ago.
But
the Football Guys
I
edition.
I don't trust the things I see online. I don't trust that they're up to date. I'm never ready for the draft. I want to draft 10 seconds before the draft.
I'm just saying
season.
you're buying the service and then canceling it so you don't have to pay for it.
No, I paid for it. I
Oh,
bought,
you're canceling it so you don't get renewed.
so I don't get renewed.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine.
No,
I'm
don't.
not criticizing that.
Oh no, I just need it
I
for
like
the draft.
that.
So yeah,
I thought
spent-
you were sort of taking on a trial and then
Oh,
had
no.
intention of.
No, I buy this instead of spending
Free
$10
trial.
on a magazine like I used to. I spend $20 on this thing, and then it's on my screen. But I'm not going to do the annual plan.
Okay.
And it costs more to get the monthly plan, but I don't want next month. I only want this month, so we're good.
Okay. So you don't really have to worry so much about the draft order unless you want to sort of like pick by pick track the draft through the app because you're auction.
Correct.
I have been in I use that app a lot. When I was getting kind of crazy into this, I was letting that draft dominator tell me everything to do. I was just like, well, this is computer intelligence and they'll know better than I would. So I was letting it, and I had friends who were like, are you serious? You're just going to let the thing make your picks for you? I'm like, absolutely. And then I came to think, okay, well, I need to have a little bit of a human element involved here. And I gained enough experience where I thought, well, I think it can happen in a home league that app is too smart for itself, where you're not, there are going to be big reaches happening and your app isn't going to anticipate that.
Right.
And so you need to be able to, because there's going to be value to scoop up along the way that the computer would not expect.
And it's
so to
not
speak.
accounting for, although there are settings in here when I can build in the biases
It's great.
of these other people. I don't know how much this might be what I do from the time I get home from the Bison's game tonight until I get in the car to go to Saratoga tomorrow. It might be the entire night that I get caught up in it, or I might close the computer and not open it until right before the draft.
You're just going to have to move fast on draft day if nobody knows the order and the names of the teams until like right before it starts.
Yes, that part.
Because you're going to have to be really quick with like making sure if Ben, for instance, is like in your opinion, and I'm not announcing here that you told me this, as like a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of like sort of his expertise level.
Sure.
And you put into the app that Ben is a 1. You got to make sure if Ben names his team, some pun off of some player, like you just look up and do a search. You're going to have to know that's Ben.
Right. That is the problem that I run into. But I am isolating that as my issue. The only real issue here is now everything else is going to be ready. I've got the cap built in. I've got the rules. It's linked to the league. All of the stuff
I'm
is
so
in
jealous.
there.
I'm so jealous
of the fact that I'm going to do an in-person draft.
Yes.
Yeah, it is fun.
I'm playing golf Saturday.
Yeah.
I have not hit a ball this year, literally.
Yep.
I don't know.
That's every year.
You want to trade places?
No, I got to go. They'd be so confused if you just got in the car.
I'm here for Brad.
You could borrow my truck and drive over to Ray's house and then just get in his car.
Pick up Scott and Ray.
Right. And
Dan.
Yep. You'll be good. We're all leaving from Ray's, so you can take my truck. No, I don't want to do it. I haven't played golf. I haven't hit a ball this year either, but I will play in a tournament on September 21st, which is also the only time I hit a ball last year. So, yeah.
I think
golf game
the
is
last
falling apart.
golf I played was in this tournament last year.
Oh, yeah, because you're playing Tuesday, and I'm filling in for you. You and Chris are playing, right?
Then there's that.
Oh, you're playing Saturday and then Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, it'll be me and Owen Parker in your spot on Tuesday. It's all right.
Yeah. So what are a couple of your plans? You don't have any?
Not really. Here's what I'm learning. My problem in an auction draft is I don't want anybody to get off cheap. So in this first mock thing that I did, I was like, well, Lamar Jackson should be more than $18, right? So I go 19. They're like, sold to you for 19. I'm like, I hate Lamar Jackson. He's my least favorite player in the league. I don't want him.
Wow. What's that about?
I just don't like him. I'm bothered by it. I don't play this game the same way that you do. I want some of your thing, but there is a
I'm
human
not talking
element.
about fantasy. You weren't talking about fantasy either.
I'm just talking about that's not a guy that I root for ever, or a guy I rely on ever, or a guy I believe in ever, and I don't want my team built around him at all.
Oh, okay.
But I also didn't want somebody to get him at whatever price, so then I bid him up, and then I get stuck with him, and I feel like that is going to happen to me again this year with someone.
Well, nominate him.
That's the new policy. If I not, but even that, I nominate him, and it's like $6. Like, well, I'll take Lamar for $7. Like it's I don't know. Nominating him is my strategy, and I know that people can hear this thing because it's happening on the radio and
yes.
online.
We're all going.
But I am, but I am intending to
Crash it.
until very late. Only
4
nominate
hours
players I don't want.
We talked about the strategy where you want to nominate players who are just below the top tier guys because you want to see if what you just said in that example is going to happen. And you could feel you're not going to know. You could feel like somebody went too cheap, or you could feel that somebody went for too much. And if the room is not sure what the difference between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson is in this draft, they might get antsy. There's only one Josh Allen. There are 14 of us. So I'll go a little higher. And, people are going to the adrenaline will be flowing. People are going to be excited. And what the fight against that is that everybody kind of thinks the quote smart strategy is to slow play auction drafts. And these are warring factions.
Yeah, and then the other one that just kicks in is, yeah, but I want him. Like, that's the other, you could do all this analysis. And you're like, yeah, but I want that guy on my team. And then it's just like, what's an extra $1? What's an extra $3?
That's
now
fine
you're
in
in
the
that
beginning.
bidding where, I don't know.
That's fine in the beginning.
Stressful.
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 Okay.
I got one draft.
It's
my
fine.
whole my whole season is this draft.
It's fine in the beginning to spend a little more than you thought you would have to. My favorite thing about the auction is like that bidding war. That's the best. When two other people in the room are fighting for a player,
Yeah.
It's absolutely the best thing that can ever happen in a fantasy draft. I'm in a baseball one, and there's a guy who lives in Florida that has never come up, at least since I've joined the league. I've never met this guy. He's never there. And then there's a guy who's always there who has brought me into this league several years ago now. And my favorite thing, it's why I'm in this league, I think, anymore, is because Kevin is going to see that Michael or Brian, this is Brian, in Florida is just thirsting for a player, and they don't really like each other, I think. And he just knows that Brian cannot control himself. So he runs, it's a 15-second clock, resets every time there's a bid. So clock goes back to 15 seconds, and I just look at Kevin, and he looks back at me. 3, 2, click.
Now.
And then boom, right back at him. Like, it can drag out the day, but that's what you're there for. You want that, I think.
Yeah.
So it's the best.
And then the live version of that is going once, going twice.
15.
Yeah. And everyone in the room going, you could have done that right away.
Yeah,
but that's
didn't
no
want to.
fun. So yeah, it's fun. It's competitive. There will be arguments. We're all very good friends and have been for a long time, but there'll be a couple little battles.
I hope so.
Yeah.
You don't go all that way for that not to happen.
Right.
Speaking of drafts, I was texting with Sneaky Joe today about a different. It was about a Sabres thing, and as Joe is known for, which is one reason I love him, he comes right back with a trivia question. Name the 3. I'm sorry if he did this on the air and people are hearing this for a second time or something. He might have, but somehow he has this at the tip of his tongue anyway, and just it seems to always happen. He says, name the 3 Sabres coaches in history that are in the Hockey Hall of Fame as players. Head coach or assistant. And it turns out it's only one assistant. And I got 2 out of 3. I missed Phil Housley. I was like, Mike, that was the easy one. But
Yeah, but ignoring his tenure as a head coach is also easy to do.
I enjoy that.
Yeah,
I look forward to doing that.
Right.
I like to block that out. But he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame as a player. So is Marcel Pronovost, who was a Sabres coach in the late 70s, and Brian Trottier, who was an assistant here.
Oh, I forgot about him, yeah.
And Joe, I got Trottier right away. Like, immediately, I got Trottier. And Joe's like, that was a hard one. He said, one of the highlights of the Cup of Coffee draft.
Cup of Coffee draft.
So I spent a good deal of time looking for the Cup of our 2020 COVID
Okay.
Cup of Coffee draft, and you were in it.
Okay, it sounds familiar to me. And then you say 2020, and I wasn't here, but I've been here, in and out over the years.
We had the three of us, Joe, Bulldog, and myself, would get on somebody different each week. We did a draft every week because there were no sports.
Yep.
And you were with us for the cup of coffee draft. Do you remember anything about? So the premise was this Buffalo cup of coffee. Like, this is somebody who just was here briefly, and nobody really thinks of them as
famous
a Buffalo
for other
sports
things.
figure.
Yeah.
So, for example, your first round pick.
I want to see if I get the first name that came in my head. Let's see if it's still the same.
Go ahead.
Ed Reed.
No.
Okay.
Joe got Ed Reed in the third round.
Okay. Can we just do the name?
Reed, and then Joe came up after the other conversation this morning. He said there are 4 Bills ones. Hall of Fame players who were on the Bills staff.
As coaches.
Yes. And he's one of them.
Schottenheimer's not Hall of Fame, right?
No, he not as a player.
That wouldn't work, and he didn't coach here, so never mind. Okay.
Other than that.
Fix my brain.
You want me to get it?
Was there a moment when Dan Reeves was here?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
just tell me.
I got 3 out of 4, but I didn't get Dick LeBeau. Charlie Joyner, Jim Ringo, Ed Reed.
Okay.
4 Bills coaches. Those are 3 assistants, and then Ringo's head coach.
All right, back to cup of coffee.
Back to the cup of coffee draft. So I got the 101, picked Antonio Brown, and everybody was really mad. Sal was furious.
So good.
Sal was furious. He's like, how dare you pick Antonio Brown? He was not on the team. I'm like, well, okay. Cup of coffee.
There was a morning when that's all we cared about.
They consummated a trade for him. No, it didn't even make it to the morning.
It was over.
It was over an hour. Rappaport had, he's a Bill. They consummated a trade with the Steelers for Antonio Brown.
At night, right?
At night,
yeah.
Just like Diggs was. And like in an hour, Antonio Brown was on social media like, yeah, no. And so it just died. So I'll
that's a great
cup of coffee.
That's
baby.
a great first overall.
Here's
pick.
your team.
All right, I'm ready.
I loved your 7th round pick was my favorite pick of the whole thing.
Okay, I can't wait to hear what I did.
In order, 1 to 8.
Okay.
Johnny Bench.
Okay.
Bobby Hurley.
Oh yeah.
Here's one, and it's a favorite of ours, and it's a great pick, a great pull. Dwight Gooden.
Yes.
Buddy Ryan. I don't know.
Buddy Ryan.
Was he just around when Rex was the coach? I don't know. I don't know about Buddy Ryan.
I don't either.
You got to anything goes in the cup of coffee draft.
Yeah, I'm sure I found a way to justify it somehow.
And he might have been longer here than Antonio Brown, who was never here. So if he was here at all,
ever,
it would count. Another great one here, Monica Seles. You really heated up in this thing. Monica Seles.
Right, she was always in the box with Golisano.
Tom Golisano's girlfriend, Monica Seles. Great pick. Sean Merriman.
Yes, lights out.
I'm going to skip 7 just to amuse myself.
Is that your favorite one?
Yes. 8, Roy Hobbs. I don't know.
Drafts are fun.
Sort of. He's a fake person.
He was definitely here.
He was
Even
definitely
though they didn't
here.
Call it here.
He was only here.
That's a tough one.
Roy Hobbs' entire baseball life was here, pretty much, except for that farm he was pitching in when he was a kid. And 7 was Ronan Tynan. That blew me away.
We did have him
Ronan
for a while.
Tynan.
We did have him.
He was
our
ours.
friend.
He was on this show.
I did well in that draft. What was the first round?
He's somebody I really wanted to impress, Ronan Tynan. We sat with him at the arena before a game once, and we talked about God Bless America. I'm like, it was written by a Russian. He's like, that's the pièce de résistance, the Irving Berlin. He was just like, I was really happy with myself in that moment.
That is awesome.
The first round was Antonio Brown. Bulldog picked Moses Malone.
Okay.
You picked Bench. And then Sneaky Joe picked Tim Horton, those are fine picks.
Yep.
Those are the 3 other picks besides mine were great picks.
Yours was great.
Mine was just weird and funny.
You knew what you were doing.
Come snake draft. Terrell Owens, Bobby Hurley, Tiny Archibald, Reggie Bush. All right, I'm back.
Negative yardage.
Negative yardage for a season. Reggie Bush, I'm back. Connie Mack, Manny Ramirez, Dwight Gooden, Ed Reed, Craig Patrick, Buddy Ryan, Doug Gilmore, Ahmad Rashad, Sam Weish.
Good.
Eddie Shore, Monica Seles, Anquan Bolden. That's a good one. At least he did put the helmet on.
That was
for like a week.
it's very Brown-like, but he was here for
He was here for like a week at Fisher, right?
Who was the other?
And Terry Pagula called him Antoine Baldwin in the New York Times.
Is
Reportedly.
fast receiver, concussion issues. Was here.
Terrell Pryor?
No. I want to say Tavon Austin, but it's not him. Oh my God, it's a name like that.
Oh, it might have been him.
No, he actually might have been here more recently, but
I think
Percy Harvin. Percy Harvin is who I'm trying to
Harvin.
think of.
Percy Harvin caught the long one from Tyrod in like the first game.
And then he left.
I think that was Percy Harvin.
Okay.
Just to give you the rest of the cup of coffee draft is so funny. CC Sabathia, Sean Merriman, Trottier.
Yep.
That's how this came up.
I can picture him behind the bench. It didn't last very long.
What the tank year was it? 1 year.
Okay.
It was always so weird.
That you have a Hall of Famer here to lose on purpose?
Despised as a player is like on the Sabres bench. And I always wanted to think that he was sort of with me and hoping that they would lose every game.
Where are you on Lucic?
I never cared about that.
Okay.
That was the Sabres' fault. I mean, he did a hockey thing, but barely.
Right.
And the Sabres made it into a federal crime, which they didn't have to do. But
fair.
Yaroslav Halak right here.
Oh.
Pete Carroll right here. Slava Kozlov to Bulldog in the 7th round. Ronan Tynan, pick of the draft. Joe then went for Taro Sugimoto, the made-up hockey player in the NHL draft in the 70s.
Now, did he complain about Antonio Brown? Because I don't think you
I
can.
hope not.
I don't think you can. I think that's the pot calling the kettle black.
We're getting Roy Hobbs here. We're getting made-up people. Then Joe's last pick was Roberto Duran. He loved that pick today, he told me. He loved that pick. He said he fought like 20 more times after he had a fight in Buffalo.
Uh-huh.
Duran,
Yeah.
Lamas,
Yeah.
Roy Hobbs, and then Bulldog, Tony Pena. It's good. And I went Clark Gillies.
Was Tony Pena a manager here? Or did he play?
He was the Bison's catcher at the first game I ever saw at the Rock Pile, 1978. For the Double-A Buffalo Bisons, the Pirates.
The Pirates, yeah.
Luis Salazar, Tony Pena were on that team.
Wow, nice.
The Bulldog sniped me, so then I picked Mr. Irrelevant, Clark Gillies. Cup of coffee draft.
I like it. That's fun.
I had to force that.
When's the last time you did a draft? Not counting fantasy draft.
A long time ago.
The fun drafts. Those were fun.
Yes. It's been years, yeah.
It might need to come back. I would like to participate again.
Well, get in line.
It's kind of the wrong time of year right now.
It's the right. Well, it just ended the right time of year, right? Because now they're on the field. Mm-hmm. Have you been following today the practice stuff?
Yeah, I had Sal on. I had Tim on. While Tim was on, there were a couple of Browns injuries consecutively, and I said, even though these don't seem to be a major issue, the things can add up. Like this guy gets carted off the field, even if nobody's mad at Spencer Brown for what happened. Somebody might be a little bit mad the next time somebody goes down, and it could lead to something to the point where during the final break before my last segment, senior advisor Dan Dale used the word kerfuffle to describe something that was happening on the field.
That's a company word.
Yeah. Keep bringing it back
for about the era of the cup of coffee draft.
Yeah. So I don't know what.
Sal just tweeted that it was a success. That it's over.
All right.
Some pushing and shoving, but nothing worse.
All right. Good enough.
Alan's talking soon, and I'll talk to Sal. I guess 5 today.
Sounds good.
Are the Broncos a rival?
No.
How many years in a row will you have to play them in the playoffs for it to be a rival?
2.
It's been 2. 3.
You'd have to. Well, I guess if you split.
I'm right, aren't I? 2 years ago.
You are. It doesn't
Bo
even.
Nix?
It doesn't even cross my mind that game 2 years ago happened.
I know, right?
You remember when you lost. You remember when it ended, and then putting the other parts together kind of hurts. No, I don't see them as a rival.
Bo Nix is 1-1 against the Bills in the playoffs ever. That's a lot more games than a lot of quarterbacks.
That's right. No, the Broncos.
Same as Lamar.
The Broncos are not a rival. I don't know who the rivals are. I mean, it's the Patriots, it's the Chiefs, it's the Ravens. I would say those 3 in some order before I got to anything else.
I'm just fixated on this AFC playoff picture. I watched Aaron Schatz with Mike Tenier today, and his metrics have there being at least 10 playoff caliber teams in the AFC, And there's always one surprise. Like, they're not all going to make it.
Yeah. I noticed it when we were doing the reverse power rankings that I was
Right.
saying things that I was uncomfortable saying. And then I look back at the list. I'm like, how did that wind up there? That's probably why you do the exercise, right? To teach yourself what you actually think about the whole thing. But, I've got a lot of teams just sort of bunched up. And I don't know how to separate. Like Jacksonville. Jacksonville wound up where in our thing? Third? I don't have a ton of respect for Jacksonville. Denver wound up second. I don't have a ton of respect for that might be exactly the finish. It might be off by a lot.
You sound like someone that didn't watch football last year.
Do I?
You took a year off. Jacksonville and Denver, that's 2 13, 14-win teams.
Yeah, I know what their records were. And the Patriots, I know what the Patriots' record was. And where'd we put them? Sixth? Something like that?
Well, yeah.
I don't have a ton of respect for that record. It's not the record. It's a different team.
That's right.
Who's the coach? Who's the quarterback? What's the overall vibe? And I don't have anybody else that leaps off the page.
As Bulldog always says, we're not the standings.
Right.
This is power rankings, not the standings.
Right. Yeah.
We don't need the records.
And you don't need power rankings if they're just going to be the standings.
Exactly.
Defeats the entire purpose of it.
Exactly.
How did you pick them? They won 13 games. Well, yeah, because I don't think they should have.
Those power rankings are the worst. Why'd you bother? Thank you, Brad. Have a great trip. I want to hear all about it next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Brad Ryder, the Chris Elliott Show. Oh, baby. So good. Sal today. Also, Benjamin Albright coming up on the Broncos. KOA, Colorado. That'll be at 4. The Cup of Coffee draft lives on. How about that 6 years later? Just found it on Twitter. Took little screen grabs of all the teams, and there you go. 803-0550 for your calls. Bills and Browns have wrapped things up. Josh Allen to speak shortly. We'll talk to Sal all about it later on. Thanks for being with me. No Bulldog today. He'll be back on Monday. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
For more comfort.
Now's the perfect time to make yourself comfortable with a new electric heating and cooling system from Belknap.
In Western New York, summer and winter bring extreme temperature conditions. Make yourself comfortable with Mitsubishi electric heat pumps, designed to keep your home cool in the summer and warm in the winter, no matter how hot or cold it gets outside. Call Belknap today to learn more.
I'm Gary Garflow, president of Belknap. We work on your schedule. We don't charge more for weekends and evenings. That's why we say,
give Belknap a ring.
I don't want to change Josh Allen's game as well, but every year I think he's evolving, fine-tuning his mechanics and understanding the defenses. But look, that's going to be an element to his game. And 30 years old is very young for quarterbacks still. It's different for some other positions. So full expectation to see the full version of Josh Allen this year.
Joe Brady, things have wrapped in Cleveland, but for some of the press conference stuff, including Josh Allen. All right, I have capitulated on the headphones. We have a new pair of headphones. I don't think they're high end. That's fine. What they also are not is broken, unlike the ones I have just decided to at least temporarily retire. Like an athlete. You're not sure right away. Maybe someone will call you. It's weird. I mean, any amount of experience, I think, this is my excuse anyway, doesn't change the fact that there's such a different sound in my ears than the last pair, but I guess that's to be expected. So, where are we at on everything? The Bills and the Browns come off the field. From what Sal is tweeting, there were no incidents or injuries, and that's, that you get an A for that. I can certainly understand the value that teams find in these sort of things. I was just thinking and struggling a little bit today to come up with different angles on the 2026 Bills season. And I welcome you to sort of join me in just kind of riffing about this, what's on your mind about it, good or bad. Brady, of course, is a big topic, a big story. There's only so much we can really know or say, though, about how this is going to go with Joe Brady. I don't think there have been any missteps yet. What would that be? I mean, he did play his guys on Saturday, got away with it, and even that is one where I think people get why coaches are tempted to do that. It's sort of common sense that the reps are worthwhile. I don't think anybody plays on Saturday, but we don't know that yet officially. I think today was that for them. That's kind of how even Brady was talking and how we've been talking this week, that the controlled practice would basically be a substitute for the game in terms of 1-versus-1 matchups and trying to, accomplish something. Now I think you take the money and run, and Saturday is for the backups. You don't want to lose them either, but you're not going to risk. I think it would be incredible if Allen saw the field again in the preseason, but we'll see. But, Brady, it's his first shot at it on any level as a head coach. And I think so far I'd say he has looked the part and sounded the part. So, again, too soon to really know anything, but nothing about what's happened here since they got on the field in Rochester has kind of changed my mind about him or about them overall. Khalil Shakir is hurt. Ed Oliver is also hurt. We know from Brady today that they're both injured. I never want to root for an injury, and I've tried to make this point many times about Shakir. I don't have a problem with him or anything like that. When he was drafted, it was a day 3 pick, and right away we were hearing good things about what kind of player he might be. I know Sigmund Bloom, for one, came on our show after that draft and was like, Shakir could be a player. And he has been. But I think, as I've said many times, I think the Bills' offense is somewhat capped by him as their number one target. I mean, that's what he's been, basically. But you're getting what? You're not getting big plays unless he breaks tackles. Yards after the catch are your only real look at that. You're not getting touchdowns either. And specifically because of Kincaid, I think he can, if you want to put it this way, limit what they're capable of as an offense. I mean, if Kincaid is healthy, you want him as your F receiver, we call this now, or maybe you always have. You want him, he's not going to put his hand down. Knox is going to do that. They want Knox on the field. We've talked about this many times. Like I said a few minutes ago, I kind of feel like I've already been, this is maybe how the players feel when you get to this time of year. Like we've been over these same kind of topics so many times. But Kincaid in that position in a more expanded role, which is what you can only do, I think, if Shakir is off the field, then maybe you have, I mean, what kind of investment he is not the point. although he is a first-round pick, and Shakir has gotten a big contract. But the point is, you've got a more dangerous downfield option on the field than you otherwise would have had. You can have them. They've both been on the field before, but I just think to get exactly what you want from Kincaid, I think almost that Shakir has to go away. Then, though, you need an outside receiver who can pick up that slack. And now you have DJ Moore, and that's a big get for the Bills, and that's another one where we've talked about it to death, but don't really know yet what that's going to be. I think there's a lot of optimism about him. I think I mentioned this yesterday in terms of fantasy football, where I spend a lot of my time. The Carolina game did well for DJ Moore. That I think mostly the community, if you will, went from kind of like we're bored, another new team. Is he washed from last year in Chicago? Some sort of, like, you hear it in my voice, or my words, like some sort of a just general malaise and maybe negativity toward him, to, okay, maybe not. He got open, downfield plays, the one crosser against Carolina. Maybe there's there's going to be a season there in DJ Moore. And then what? And the guy that we never talk about is Palmer. Yesterday, talking to Sal, yesterday or Tuesday, talking to Sal, it's like, right now, they go to Cleveland. Shakir was not on the field at practice. DJ Moore is off to the side. And Coleman's in a walking boot. So you've got 3 receivers down for this practice today. Or maybe it didn't turn out that way with Moore. I know Shakir was not available. And so that leaves Palmer, who I was not excited about as an acquisition in the first place, because in several years with the Chargers, there was never, there was one year where he popped a little bit, but that was because of injuries maybe, where he was needed. You never had a year where he commanded targets, where he sort of enforced his will, if you will, on the Chargers offense. And I just thought, like, that was probably going to continue. But he's somebody, if you didn't have Shakir, whether you for some reason wanted that or didn't want that, either way, just imagine if you didn't have him, then I think it's pretty straightforward. Moore, Palmer, or Coleman, but now Palmer, Kincaid, Knox, Cook. And then your front 5 and Allen. Like, that's your 11. And we can call that 12 personnel because Kincaid is listed as a tight end, or maybe more want to think about it as 13. That interests me. Then you have an offense where you almost have to see more air yards from Allen. Now, it's good to have underneath, and Shakir does that, and Cook does that. Although Cook doesn't get many targets, maybe that changes, and Knox. But that, to me, looks dynamic if you got there. And we'll see if it ever happens and how that would hold up. And that brings up another point, which is, and I think I speak for a lot of people, but not everyone necessarily, of course. That's never the case. But we've been pining for a Bills offense that is more threatening, is more dangerous, is more about Allen and his talent getting the ball down the field more often than they do. And what I say, I know I don't speak for everybody, but there's a lot of us who have been waiting for that and begging for it even. And at the same time, what they've been, which is not that, has been very successful with Cook and the role he plays and being more conservative, and with Shakir and what his assets are, what his strengths and weaknesses are. It's what it's added up to is a team that wins 12 games every year. What can you say? And another one that I've talked about a lot is that for all that's been worth, then you get to the playoffs and you need more, but that's like really such a fine line because their losses have mostly been so close, and you're talking about 1 or 2 plays, and I don't know, I've never really been able to figure out how to advertise for, well, this is obviously what they need to do. Well, why? Because they went to the second round or the AFC Championship and lost by a field goal? That's the difference between winning and losing. I mean, that's kind of a tough argument. A lot of teams over the years have been good enough to do that. Not every year. I mean, the Bills are coming up on some historic stuff with their run of playoff appearances and then losses shy of a championship. I mean, there have been lots of teams that have been likewise, and I don't know, like some are obvious for what they need. You know, this team, we talk about pass rush for that, and then also that dangerousness in the passing game that's been lacking, at least post-Diggs. So that's a lot of what, if you missed the summer here on WGR, that's a lot it's a lot of what we've been doing for the last few months is what is DJ Moore going to give to them? What is Joe Brady going to be able to do as the head coach for the first time? Do they have any sort of shift philosophically in how they want to play? We've talked about the schedule a lot and the fact that it's tougher starting right away with Houston in week 1, a team that has been a problem for the Bills. Protecting Allen in that game last couple of years, there's that glaringly weird 9 for 30 Allen game from Houston in 2024. So would love to know where your head's at with these guys as we get another day closer to the season. Sal will join me at 5. We're hoping for Benjamin Albright coming up in 20 minutes. A check-in on the Broncos and how things look to him about the AFC West and the AFC overall. Mike Tanier yesterday was really good on that. I want to talk about some of what I heard from him and Aaron Schatz on their podcast earlier today. Aaron at ESPN, they did an hour on the AFC North that I thought was pretty good. 803-0550 to join me. Bulldog is off today. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. We continue with new headphones. Pros. Let's go the other way. Cons. They're kind of tiny. I like the big. These guys have like the big ears. They cover the whole area. And, you know, that's welcome to the majors, Mr. Hobbs, right there. That big coverage that I like. You had to pay extra for that. Pros, it's not falling off of my head, this pair. Barely held together by duct tape from, weeks ago now. Barely hanging on as a pair of headphones. I guess you throw them out. What good will they do for the world going forward once this happens? I don't know. I hate to do it. I hate to throw anything out. I guess in my mind, somehow there's some possibility that they just magically become reattached and work perfectly. It wasn't the only problem with these. These guys were pretty old. Just the little jack down here. So, time to move on, I guess. Benjamin Albright from Denver coming up. We hope Sal Capaccio will be joining us at 5 from Cleveland. The Bills and the Browns have wrapped their joint practice today, apparently, and Josh Allen is going to speak if he isn't already. We'll talk to Sal about the whole thing coming up at 5. No fights. I heard that Brady said, throw a punch and you're out. And I think the Cleveland coaches said that. That seems to be the prevailing sentiment among coaches now, if it always wasn't, that the fighting is the bridge too far in a practice, be that within a team or in one of these joint sessions. I was watching, I wanted to bring this up with Sal maybe. There wasn't a fight today apparently, so it won't be as applicable, but I'm kind of still into watching old games, and sometimes I just get what comes up because I'll have fallen asleep and I'll wake up and it'll be 5 hours later and some other game will be on. And I woke up to Super Bowl V the other day. I know, what a life, right? Imagine being me. I woke up to Super Bowl V, which the Super Bowl V broadcast that you get on YouTube, it's NBC, and there is a long pregame show with Kurt Gowdy and Joe Namath. And, to see the game, you got to fast forward like maybe even 2 hours. They had these giant inflatable action figures of the two quarterbacks. And it's kind of hilarious the time it takes for them to be inflated. Like, it's kind of the intro to the game is they announce the Baltimore Colts, and then somebody pushes a button, and this Johnny Unitas giant inflatable statue starts to blow up, and it takes, 30 seconds to a minute, and then the Dallas one, or maybe I have the order wrong. So that's funny. The early Super Bowls are really funny for what they did to try to, ramp up to the game, what passed as a pregame show in those days. But in the game itself, so it's a game that's famous for there being a lot of turnovers and screw-ups. This isn't really one of those. There's a long pass. Dallas has the ball. And there's a long pass to Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes was a sprinter and maybe the fastest man in football in his day. So long pass down the right sideline, and he catches it, gets tackled right away, and they barely show anything because there's a flag. So you only get like the very beginning of this. And so I don't know how long it even lasted. But the Baltimore guy who takes him down kind of just maybe for a half second too long stands over him. And so maybe it's that like Hayes tries to get up, but this Baltimore defender just sort of is blocking his chances of doing that. And Hayes maybe just kind of pushes him a little bit to get up. And immediately the Colts player just starts throwing on Bob Hayes. Like, who knows what's being said, if anything. It would never happen in today's league. It wouldn't have happened in the NFL in decades. But here you go. It used to be different. And here's Bob Hayes trying to get up from a completion, and the Colts guy is standing, and he's on the ground. And he can't really do it, and he finally bumps the guy a little bit just to be able to get on his feet, and the Colts player just starts wailing on Bob Hayes. No flag or anything for that. They didn't care about that. And there was another fight in that game, too, where you just see guys starting to throw wildly at each other with the helmets on and everything. It seems kind of nuts. Again, something days gone by in the NFL. I'm Mike Schopp. Thanks for listening. More after sports here on WGR.
Joint practice day for the Buffalo Bills. They were in Cleveland this afternoon working with the Browns. Practice has wrapped up and players for the Bills have been speaking with the media. In terms of injuries, it was a lengthy list for the Bills of players not participating today. Ty Johnson, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Skylar Bell, Dante Pettis, Connor McGovern, Ed Oliver, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and Jalen Kilgore. And the Barnes from Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. Following practice, though, as mentioned, players were speaking with the media. That does include quarterback Josh Allen, who spoke on the benefits of taking part in a joint practice.
You get to go against defense that you haven't seen in a non-game-like atmosphere. In practice, you seem to take more risks. The defense will take more risks, too. So to get those live bullets and to see something, get your checks, understand how guys are moving, it's really awesome.
We'll get more on today's practice coming up a little bit later on today at 5 when Sal Capaccio will join the show. Staying in the NFL, 2 preseason games tonight. Vegas at Houston. Kickoff of that one is at 8. And for Vegas, first overall pick Fernando Mendoza is expected to play the first half with Aiden O'Connell, then getting the second half. And at 10 o'clock, we'll have the Chargers playing host to the 49ers. While in baseball, Bison's home to Lehigh Valley tonight. First pitch at 6:35. The Blue Jays have already wrapped up their game with Tampa Bay, winning 5-1. And then coming up at 6:35, the Yankees. They're at Baltimore. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp.
It's nothing you did.
It's not you, it's me.
It's not you. It's you, but you didn't cross me.
And the Bulldog.
Why did I choose? Why did I just stay in school?
On WGR, Sports Radio 550.
I was just sitting here again feeling jealous of Brad. I don't have to be in every draft. Mike, you don't have to be in every draft. But so much of what I do is online, and it's like tournament stuff, higher stakes, go to Vegas. Even my own league, the League of Shopes and Dreams, if you don't know. This year, I missed the draft. It felt like a jumping the shark moment for me with that league. I hate to say it, and I don't intend for it to be, but I had to be, listen to me. I was at my son's lacrosse clinic that day out of town and couldn't go. And, he's going to be a senior in high school. Like we're in that moment where it's especially important to do as much of that as we can. And, for all the I's to be dotted and the T's to be crossed. And so I missed my league draft, and that did not feel good. So good for Brad. An auction draft in Saratoga. He's been going for 27 years. That's nice. That's a great tradition. With me now on the West Her hotline is our guy in Denver, Benjamin Albright, KOA Colorado. Ben, you good? I hope we're not putting any sort of extra stress into your life by bugging you today.
No, it's been a fascinating day here for me personally, but I'm glad to be on board with you.
If you want to say anything, go ahead. I mean, it's in this world, maybe it does get back to you, but I don't know. Like if you want to vent, you certainly should feel free.
I don't even know what to vent. I mean, the parking garage in my apartment complex sort of collapsed, and I don't even know what you do with that. Really, that's just it's been one of those days.
I guess you just park somewhere else and wait for security or wait for repairs. I guess I don't know. Tough one.
Yeah.
I guess the best you can do. So Benjamin, here we go into 2026. The Bills and Broncos, having met in the playoffs each of the last 2 years, have Broncos fans, yourself, everybody there, kind of settled into a new reality that these guys are like a contender, and you have high standards there now.
I think the fan base certainly has. The bar is far higher than it was when Sean Payton got here. The bar is now set at excellence. I think the fans around here are looking at this team as a contender. I think the team feels it's a contender. I think there's been a growth of confidence to the point where, last year they were winning a lot of those games with last second comebacks, and I think last year they sort of had this mentality that they could hang with anybody. I think they're coming into this year more with a hunter's approach. Like we can't just hang with anybody; we can beat anybody, and I think that's where they sit right now.
Teams tend to like it when they feel slighted. And maybe the Broncos have a little bit of that with there being the it's just one manifestation of it, perhaps. The third choice in the betting markets in the AFC West. Maybe a little bit of what do we have to do? Okay, Kansas City, I get it, but the Chargers too. That's a little weird for me, given the year Denver just had.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't, that has not been a consistent talking point around here, but I do think that that's certainly felt. I think that everybody, here in Denver kind of says, well, hey, look, we think we're a contender. We don't care what the betting markets say. Maybe, we're getting better odds to put our own money down on this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I think here it's interesting because I think they feel like the biggest threat is the Chargers and not really Kansas City. A lot of people think Kansas City is probably the third team in the division. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out this year. I think the pulse of Denver is one that, maybe Kansas City's time at the top is waning or has passed.
Why do you think that would be, Benjamin, that the Chargers might outrank the Chiefs in Denver's eyes?
I think part of it is, watching the Chargers the last couple of years, Sean Payton's always struggled against Jim Harbaugh, but, you look, it's been a quality team. When they haven't had a spate of injuries, they've been tough to beat. Now you've added guys that are well known here in Denver. Adam Gase is on that offensive staff. He was, of course, on the Broncos offensive coordinator when they were record setting. Mike McDaniel is running the offense. Of course, he's a very familiar name. He's from here. And so I think there's a combination of, adding those two names, the work they did on the offensive line this year, and just seeing how that team played in previous years when they were fully healthy.
Right. Adam Gase, back to that incredible, historic Peyton Manning season, right? He's the 55 touch. He's the quarterback coach of that team, right? Maybe?
Yeah, he was the OC, QB coach, like those teams back then. He was kind of the architect of that. Now Peyton Manning was running the show against Peyton Manning, but Adam Gase was certainly the guy with the designation.
McDaniel is interesting. I love his story, and that's a guy I root for. Bills and Dolphins, the Bills continued to kind of own them, and obviously it came apart for the Dolphins. But I get the optimism about him with L.A. It sounds like you might too.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of those guys that's best suited as a coordinator anyway. He's one of those people that's a brainiac. He loves drawing things up and that kind of stuff. His problem down there in Miami with a lot was managing personnel, and he doesn't have to do as much of that. I think as the OC with the Chargers. Obviously a Shanahan disciple, and he's been through it in the league. He's seen it all. He's been around, suffered through some addiction and rehab issues and all that kind of stuff, and just managed to conquer all that. He's one of those guys that when you talk to him, you kind of can't help but root for him.
Right. Benjamin Albright, my guest. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today. This is WGR. I hate to keep asking you questions about how you think everybody feels. I go on in different cities, and I get those questions, and I don't want to speak for everybody. You can't. But I am curious for how maybe in your own mind or how you think Denver sort of looks back on the end of last year, winning the Buffalo game in overtime in the playoffs. Then you get the Knicks news right after the game, which was shocking. And, the AFC Championship ends up being in a blizzard without your quarterback. Do you throw your hands up a little bit because of that? Is it, being kind of new back into the playoffs and into the AFC Championship game, you never want to lose, but you sort of look at it maybe as growth. What are maybe the right sentiments for the Broncos at the end of last year?
Well, I think there's a feeling here that if Bo had been healthy, they probably beat the Patriots. I don't know if they beat the Seahawks, but they'd probably beat the Patriots. I think more
Hey, Ben, we're kind of losing you here for a minute, so I don't know if you can go back to where you were if you moved like 30 seconds ago, but I lost you in the middle of that answer. Knicks, remember, I do, from what I remember about working that night after the Bills loss with Bulldog here, is the news that just sort of interrupted our post-mortem that Knicks had been injured. Sorry, Ben, hopefully this works better. You were saying.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, I think there's an optimism that comes out of that. I think the team is certainly dejected that they didn't have full strength and Bo to play the Patriots, and obviously they feel like they could have won that one. But you look at that, you say, okay, well, we got there. And this is a return. We're bringing the whole band back, basically. I mean, John Franklin Meyer is the only player they're not bringing back. And so I think there's a mentality that, hey, we got there with what we had. Why not us? Why can't we do it again? And so I think there's an optimism from that.
Benjamin, did anybody outside of the locker room know about the Knicks injury before Sean Payton announced it?
Sort of. We all saw Bo limping there, and so there was sort of this oh, he's a little dinged up, but we did not know the extent or severity of it. And no, it did not leak until right before Sean got up there to the podium. The Broncos front office, communications people kind of pulled some of us to the side there and said, "Hey, he's about to go up there, and Bo's going to be done. You need to be in there for that." So.
Yeah, that had to be pretty shocking. I mean, I was just saying for a minute there how incredible that was here. I mean, we're sitting here trying to digest the loss and figure it all out. And then, we get in our ear, by the way, Bo Nix broke his ankle. And wasn't Nix bothered by how that went or what was disclosed eventually?
Yeah, that situation was, there's a lot to that. I'll say this. I mean, Bo probably dropped back too much in that game. Shouldn't have been running, QB power there toward the end. They should have let a running back run it. All kinds of decisions that were involved in that. Later on, afterwards, he sort of took exception to the way Sean Payton got out there and publicly talked about the injury and maybe described it as sort of recurring because he had had an issue with the other ankle back in college. And there was some friction, some definite friction from that. That's long since mended now, but at the time and the way that was presented, there was definite friction from Bo on that.
How do you feel, Ben, about how Nix is perceived as a quarterback in the league, a top quarterback, the success that he's had? I mean, I think he gets sort of run over a little bit because of either his age or just sort of the way Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, even Burrow sort of established a hierarchy in the conference. And I think May has maybe even cracked that too. The question maybe should be, does Nix, in your opinion, get enough respect?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think the national narrative on him is somewhat lacking. I think some of the arguments that are used against him are somewhat suspect. But the flip side of that, I mean, I think, opposing players respect him. I think it's maybe a media and a fans thing. I mean, you look at this, he led the NFL in dropbacks last year, but didn't clear 4,000 yards. That was a little eye-opening. And so, people look at all the screens and things like that, and they say, okay, well, he doesn't throw the ball deep. Well, that's not true. I mean, he's got a pretty good deep ball, actually, which, you guys saw a couple of those. It's just, the way they were doing things last year when J.K. Dobbins went down and that kind of stuff. And then, the offensive line gets credited as being one of the best offensive lines in football. Well, part of that's because Bo gets rid of the ball so quick and doesn't take sacks, and the sacks are as much a quarterback stat as they are an offensive line stat. So I think there's a little give and take with that. I think sometimes the narratives on him are incorrect, and then sometimes he does get the praise he deserves.
Mm-hmm. 7 game-winning drives. I mean, you can't really scoff at that too much. So what have they done to get better? Jalen Waddle, in my fantasy streets, Benjamin, there's a lot of excitement about Jalen Waddle. He's a player that over the course of the summer has gone up in drafts. I guess questions about him can be asked, I suppose. He hasn't always been the most durable guy. But I guess the question I would have is, can he be somebody – is he a clear number one? You still have Sutton, and Denver is famous for just running in and out, a few other guys in and out in their running game and their passing game. What do you think it looks like for Waddle?
Well, I mean, I don't know about number one, but what he brings to the table changes what they do on offense. I mean, he can fly, but more importantly than that, he can gear down, change direction, and pick speed back up. And so that allows him to work the middle of the field. He's going to be the Z receiver. I mean, Sean Payton offense typically has got that X guy who's a big body slant guy. Michael Thomas back in the day, Marcus Colston. That's what Cortland Sutton will play. And then Waddle will play the other side of that. He'll be the Devery Henderson back there, Brandon Cooks, Ted Ginn, those types of guys that are on the backside that can fly. And when you've got that guy, it changes how you play defense. I mean, it forces defenders to go back to, too high looks a lot, opens up stuff underneath, and it's going to make things better for other guys like Evan Ingram, who didn't have the most productive year last year. That's
interesting. So, I mean, Sutton, you see him still being Cortland Sutton going into this year? He's not old or anything, 30. It's about the time to start asking those questions, but is he likely in your mind to be the player he's been?
I think so. I mean, he's looked like that in camp. Now, the question is this going to be his last year in Denver? The Broncos had previously drafted Pat Bryant, who has looked like an absolute star here in camp. And so I think what you're getting here is probably the last year of Sutton. Sutton knows that. I think he's playing for one more contract somewhere else. And I think you're going to get a player that looks pretty much like the Sutton of old. And, he's going to have a lot of one-on-one attention because people are paying attention to Waddle, just another guy that gets some benefit from that.
How about the running back mix, Benjamin? That's another one with Denver that is really tough to predict, I think, sometimes, at least from the outside. Jonah Coleman seems interesting as a rookie. Dobbins back. R.J. Harvey. How do you think it meshes?
Well, Dobbins is the guy until he's, inevitably hurt. I know he made the promise to Denver media, said he pinky promises he's playing all 17 games. He'll buy everybody a beer if he doesn't. I told him I was going to hold him to that. I want my free beer. But, as far as the rest of that goes, I mean, Dobbins is running back one. He's the main guy. After that, R.J. Harvey has sort of a pass catching role. If you go back and look at Sean Payton's offense in New Orleans and how he deployed Reggie Bush, that's basically the R.J. Harvey role. And then Jonah Coleman is probably the guy to own if you're a fantasy owner if Dobbins goes down, because he'll step into the Dobbins role rather than Harvey just moving up. Harvey will continue his same role, and Coleman, who has looked just phenomenal, will step into that J.K. Dobbins role. So if you're looking at that thing, it's kind of a RB 1-2-3 with Dobbins, Coleman, Harvey, except that Harvey has sort of carved out a pass catching role as well.
Okay. Hey, no offense to the guy. I respect anybody that plays in this league, and what he's been through physically is, it's a tremendous effort and story and, perseverance. If he's willing to extend that offer, my hand is up. I mean, there was the year with Ian Rappaport where Rappaport tweeted something about, I think it was Rappaport, somebody on that level, tweeted something about Dobbins, not being ready maybe for week one. He was still with Baltimore at the time, and he clapped back at that, but the report was correct, it turned out.
Yeah, and he's just super sensitive about that because it's one of those things. He has battled back from a myriad of devastating injuries, frankly, and credit to him for being able to battle back from that. But monikers stick, and they stick for a reason. And so I think that's kind of where he's at right now. Is he's trying to put that positivity back in the universe, but there's quite a bit of skepticism.
I want to get to Jim Leonard, but while we're on offense, Davis Webb and the Bills might have dabbled in that idea too when they were looking for a replacement for Sean McDermott. He ends up getting promoted in Denver? Is he the play caller now, or what exactly?
Yeah, and there's some mythology out there that Sean Payton has identified him and groomed him, and this was engineered by Bo and Greg Penner, the owner, and he's the play caller now, and you can see it. That some of the archaic aspects of Sean Payton's offense have been updated with Davis Webb on the show. There's more motion, there's more tempo. They break the huddle much quicker, and so those are things I think that are going to really matter once they get to playing this season. So he's the play caller, he's the offensive coordinator. The question is how long he's going to be here before somebody snaps him up and makes him a head coach.
Pretty good career arc so far, being only 31 and in that spot, right? At least.
Oh yeah. He's a rising star. He's a young guy, but he's a rising star.
Jim Leonard takes over the Bills defense. What were your interactions with him like?
Oh, they were great. Jim was more than just. He was listed as the secondary coach, the DB's coach, that kind of thing. But he was much more involved than that. Kind of a lieutenant as the defensive coordinator. Great guy to be around. Loves football. Knows football. He was instrumental in helping to identify some draft picks too. When he was back there at Illinois, the Broncos drafted 2 or 3 players from Illinois from when he was there, including Miles Scott this past year, a converted receiver who's a safety now that Leonard basically taught him the ropes as a defender. So very instrumental. Great coach. That was one of those things that, honestly, a lot of people here expected Vance Joseph to maybe get a head coaching job this offseason and Jim Leonard to be the DC here. So, high marks for him all the way around here.
Big changes coming to the Bills defense underway after, 9 years with Sean McDermott, kind of doing it one way, and big adjustment, transition time here for the Bills. A few minutes left with Benjamin Albright. Ben, what about the AFC overall here? We talked about the AFC West a little bit, and you have 3 contenders there. Man, it's tough for me to try to parse the rest of it. You've got at least 2 worthy, 2 teams in each division at least where you can talk seriously about them winning big, I think. I'd include the Bengals, Jacksonville and Houston in the South. It's going to be fun this year after a while of – last year was its own transition in the AFC where you had, 4 teams – had won the respective divisions 2 years in a row before last year, and then none of them did. So it could get pretty wild.
Yeah, it could, and that's that parity that we love in the NFL, right? The way the pendulum swings, and nobody has that unless you're the Tom Brady Patriots. Nobody has that lock on it forever. So it's good. I think it's good for the league. I think it's good for everybody. And you see some teams on the rise that have been more abundant over the years. I mean, Jacksonville being good all of a sudden was kind of fun. That kind of thing. You've got Houston. If they figure the quarterback situation out, that defense is lethal. You mentioned Cincinnati. They could pour the points on. The question is, can they field a defense? And that, they went out and got Dexter Lawrence, but we don't know. Baltimore with new coaching staff, what's that going to look like without Harbaugh there? There's a lot of questions, but I think it's a lot of fun questions. I don't think it's a lot of trudgery. I think this is one of those things where you've got good teams that have question marks, and I think it's a pretty fun playing field.
That Denver schedule, you got the NFC West this year. I love it when it's West versus West. They're such great matchups and a lot of night games right away at Kansas City Monday night in week 1. The Bills have their version of this. The Bills get the NFC North. The Bills have 5 games. Well, of course they would against the NFC, and they're all at night. And they all look like, really good matchups on paper. And Denver's schedule is much the same, including the Bills in Denver on Christmas Day.
Yeah, that's going to be, first of all, that's going to be a fun one to work. But, it is. You mentioned the West versus West thing. And, the NFC West is kind of like the AFC West, where you got 3 teams that are contenders and 1 team that's the goofy stepchild. And, the Arizona Cardinals and the Raiders for the divisions respectively. But, yeah, it's going to be tough. In the first, 6-8 weeks that Denver plays, it's a brutal schedule before it gets kind of easy and then, starts to tighten back up there around Christmas. So if the Broncos can weather that storm early, that middle of that schedule very favorable for them, and then it sets up beautifully heading on into the late season of playoffs.
Very similar to the Bills' schedule. And then last thing for you, Benjamin, you get, as it happens, Denver gets Buffalo and New England back-to-back late in the season, just like last year in the playoffs. The Bills out there and then the Patriots in the AFC Championship. How do you compare those 2 teams?
Well, I mean, the Bills, going through that transition, you're going to be changing defensive styles. You went from, zone defense under McDermott to an attacking defense under Jim Leonard. It's going to be a lot more one high. Everybody, you got the threat of Josh Allen. That's going to be interesting. And we hear reports about how him and DJ Moore look together and all that. As far as the Patriots go, I mean, they're a good football team, but it's, it feels like they're a team that's more on the rise than established like Buffalo. You got the young guy in Drake May. You get Vrabel. We have yet to see with all the stuff that went on with him this summer, how that looks, how that team stays together this season. So, good defense, but another team that maybe, you're kind of waiting to see these pieces they brought in, how they fit.
Benjamin, thank you. Good luck with that parking garage. Hopefully your car wasn't in it.
Yeah, it wasn't. Thank goodness.
That's a break. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the season.
All right, take care.
Benjamin Albright out in Denver, KOA, Colorado. Bills and Broncos Christmas Day. One of 3 games on Christmas, because we have to have games on Christmas. We already had NBA games. That wasn't enough. We have to have NFL games on Christmas. Let's get one of these joint practices played in Europe. I mean, is that inevitable? That's Roger Goodell's word, right? Inevitable that there'll be a full-time team in Europe? I don't know. It's not that hard to comprehend. Everything's about money, and somebody's going to step up. And something I could have asked Ben about, because he's tweeted about it, what that is going to look like. My guess would be, and maybe I haven't done enough research to make a more educated guess, my guess would be Mexico City. We've had plenty of games there. Arizona, the Texas teams, the California teams, all relatively accessible. I mean, it's a long trip. Maybe even I should compare that with London, because I'm not sure it's really that much different. But I could see either of those being the first or the breakthrough where there's a franchise there full time. And I would guess that we're not moving anybody. So do they add 1 team only? Is it 2? Is it London and Mexico City, and those are just new NFL franchises? I would think, maybe just a guess, that the NFL would expand internationally before it expands domestically. That there would be teams in Europe or South America or Mexico before there's another team in, I don't know, where would it be? Would Toronto be in that conversation too? I mean, so big, so close. Imagine a Bills versus Toronto rivalry in a decade or two in the NFL. But it's going to happen. Does it have to be the worst thing ever? No, it's just sort of how these things go. Growth, money, that's going to be what dictates. The Broncos, are they a rival? Now, 2 years in a row in the playoffs, I mean, how many would it take for you to care a lot about the Denver Broncos as a team to beat or a team in the Bills' hair, so to speak? 803-0550 for your calls. Would love to talk about James Cook, DJ Moore, Dalton Kincaid, the kind of the usual suspects when we have these topics on our show. We've got Joe Brady in his first year and the changes on defense. Everything is ramping up to week 1 in Houston coming up September 13th. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today. Lines are open for your calls. Sal coming up at 5 with a report from Cleveland. This is WGR.
Joint practice day is in the books for the Buffalo Bills. Practice has happened, and the players have spoken with the media as the Bills were in Cleveland getting work done with the Browns before their game on Saturday. Before practice, we did get an unofficial injury list for the Bills, and it is quite lengthy. Ty Johnson, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Skylar Bell, Dante Pettis, Connor McGovern, Ed Oliver, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and Jalen Kilgore all did not either participate completely or not able to take part in teamwork. And the Barnes Firm Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-MILLION. As mentioned, players did speak following practice, one of which was quarterback Josh Allen, who talked about the benefits of participating in a joint practice.
You get to go against defense that you haven't seen in a non-game-like atmosphere. In practice, you seem to take more risks. The defense will take more risks, too. So to get those live bullets and to see something, get your checks, understand how guys are moving, it's really awesome.
We'll get more on today in just about a half hour at 5 when Sal Capaccio joins the show from Cleveland. And speaking of joint practices, both the Cowboys and Saints, they've been fined $500,000 due to the fights in their practice earlier this week. 2 preseason games tonight. Vegas at Houston with kickoff at 8. First overall pick, Fernando Mendoza. He is expected to play the first half with Aiden O'Connell getting the second half. And then at 10, we've got the Chargers hosting the San Francisco 49ers. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
He was listed as the secondary coach, the DB's coach, that kind of thing, but he was much more involved than that, kind of a lieutenant as the defensive coordinator. Great guy to be around, loves football, knows football. He was instrumental in helping to identify some draft picks, too. When he was back there at Illinois, the Broncos drafted 2 or 3 players from Illinois from when he was there, including Miles Scott this past year, a converted receiver who's a safety now that Leonard, basically taught him the ropes as a defender. So very instrumental, great coach. That was one of those things that, honestly, a lot of people here expected Vance Joseph to maybe get a head coaching job this offseason and Jim Leonard to be the DC here. So, high marks for him all the way around here.
Benjamin Albright, just on with me, Mike Schopp, talking about Jim Leonard. $500,000 fines to the Cowboys and Saints for fighting at their joint practices. Can the NFL just announce any number? Is it that rich where, guys, what do you think we should ding them for? Like, what sounds good? How much? What are we going to do with this money? What do we want? Can they just do that unilaterally? How about $500,000? All right. There you go. $500,000 fines for fighting. Probably there are some parameters, but I didn't know you would get fined for that. And here comes, the teams probably should have. Here comes the NFL. We want $500,000 from each of you for whatever happened in those practices. For that amount of money, hopefully it was pretty bad. Let's go to James here. Hi, James.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm just curious about James Cook and Josh Allen's use on the goal line. First of all, from perspective of health for Josh, getting a year older, are we going to start protecting him a little bit more? Stop, having him run through multiple defensive guys, just to try and get in there. But also from a fantasy perspective, is that do we see that really possibly juicing up James Cook's numbers, causing us to fade Allen a little bit more? Just wanted to get your perspective on it and see what you thought, what people are seeing in practices so far.
Yeah, thanks, James. For me, this is not only a reasonable question, but it's one that I've been asking for years, and I have I've yet to see the Bills do that, where they rein in Allen or they basically have Cook, as I kind of thought the whole time would be the case, where he would his upside in terms of touchdowns would be capped because of Allen. What do the Bills go and do? They broke records, and you've got both guys rushing for double-digit touchdowns both years. And so it gets tiring betting against it. But the day will come. And I think starting with Cook, James, it's reasonable to think this year is when we see it. The talk about him has been pretty much one direction, which is they want to throw the ball to him more. They have a new coordinator in Pete Carmichael, who was famous for having that be a big part of their offense when he was in New Orleans. So you might either just sort of circumstantially go there or even maybe just know it. That everybody seems to be assuming it. But I think that would have to mean fewer touches for Cook as a rusher. And that would have to extend to inside the 5-yard line or inside the 10. I mean, he's got the breakaway ability. Many of his touchdowns have come from distance, and that doesn't have to go away. But there, in terms of fantasy, since you asked, not the I can just sort of bring that up on my own. James Cook is about pick 9 in the first round, and you've got Jonathan Taylor, you've got Christian McCaffrey, you've got Omarion Hampton, Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown, Ashton Genty, Saquon Barkley. That's 8. I might have even missed one. And they all go from about the middle of the first round to the middle of the second. And I think the bet on Cook at that price is basically a bet on his repeating last year overall, even if that does come with more receptions but fewer touchdowns on the ground. And I don't like betting guys at their ceiling. I can't imagine. Look, I'm on the record with James Cook for a couple years being just sort of like, yeah, okay, he's fine. So don't necessarily consider me like a great source on this, but I don't want to bet guys at their ceiling, and I think that's what that is with Cook. I think, you're talking about elite producers all over, but I think Genty, Chase Brown, Walker for sure are 3 guys in that group where they could have, or even Genty and Walker could or should have bigger years than they've had before. Like, I think that's what I mean. I think Cook, his ceiling is what we got already. That could happen again. Last year I would have said the same thing, okay? I would have said the same thing. Allen's a year older. Come on, he's not going to – he ran so pure on touchdowns, like 200 carries and 16 touchdowns. That's nuts. That's not going to happen again. It really didn't. But instead, he led the league in rushing yards on 100 more carries and had enough touchdown production to rate. I'm not sure I'm answering your question. I don't love picking Cook. A lot of my friends do. I've seen him go as high as 105, 106 in big drafts. So I'm just very stubborn. I'm stubborn on this player. I'm stubborn on Derrick Henry. I'm stubborn on certain guys where I think we've already seen the peak, and with as dangerous as the position is with injuries and just volatility within a team, I don't really want to do it. Allen, for his part, is on his own tier now. That's never even really happened. He went from, he's been the QB1 in fantasy like 4 or 5 years in a row, or almost. So he went from, maybe he should be the QB1 to, okay, he's right at it, to now where there is like 3 rounds of separation between Allen and the next guy, whether that's Lamar Jackson or Drake May. It tends to be sometimes Burrow if it's the Chase or Higgins owner. Like, that's the list. And, he's much tougher to bet against as a player. If I were betting prop numbers, you wouldn't need to twist my arm to get me to the overs on Josh Allen. That does kind of feel like where this year is headed with the tougher schedule and maybe with DJ Moore. So that I'm fine with. I just don't really want to draft him because I don't want to draft a quarterback that early. So I've got reasons against both of those guys, but in terms of Cook, I'm certainly not sure that I'm right. I've been wrong before on him. And in terms of Allen, it's more just a positional analysis. Thanks, James. Good luck. Here's Tony next. Hi, Tony.
Hey, Mike. I only caught the tail end with your last guest with Albright, so if this came up, my apologies. But hearing a little bit of Bronco talk makes me think about a comparison in the AFC that I just think is just like the Spider-Man meme. It's the Patriots for me, and I know the two might not always be compared a lot because they're not competing for a division, but they both have the ascending quarterback. The new, May obviously being a notch above. The new alpha in the receiver room, the second round running backs, or maybe from last year that are sitting behind, questionable veteran, RB1s for their team.
Yep.
And then the foundation on defense and good coaching, man. I mean, honestly, that Bronco team is every bit as scary as the Patriots and can do every bit, the damage to their division that that has been won elsewhere. Not last year, notwithstanding, but they can knock off the Chiefs in the same way that the Patriots could knock off the Bills for a second year in a row and kind of take claim as the team to beat in their division.
Yeah, that's really good, which comes to me as no surprise. I think those are all good points. And by the way, to your last point, if it happens, then eventually we're going to have to come over and recognize that. These conversations this year for me have been, all right, as recently as yesterday on the show, do we want to make the adjustment to a new reality in the conference where the Broncos, the Patriots, the Jaguars, I guess that's the list, as teams that were ascendant or are, do we want to make the adjustment to inviting those into the room as the elite in the conference? If you do that and you let Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Houston even stick around, I mean, now you have half the conference in the room. Now half the AFC is in this sort of contender status. It does not include the Chargers, who might belong there, or the Steelers, who only win that division. And now you're at 10, and even Indianapolis deserves some respect. I think this has been interesting through the power rankings we do, where you have 7 or 8 teams that at the top of the conference that you can reasonably put in any order. Who's the 8th best team in the AFC? We do this every Tuesday. Who's the 8th best team in the AFC? You got to pick somebody. And who's the best? It's just really easy to mix those up. And you could draw them out of a hat, and I think it could make sense, the order. One week we're putting New England first or second. The next we're putting them 6th. I think maybe just because we're in a mood about them. And then you have these teams like the Chargers might belong actually in that first group. Then you have the Colts and the Steelers and who else? I mean, that are sort of iffy. And then you have the Jets, Dolphins, Browns, Raiders, and Titans, who are nobody's idea of good. Tennessee at least might be conceivable. I know Sam Panayotovich will be on tomorrow, has said that he likes them at the price in the AFC South. But, man, they're a long way behind the others. So the story for the Bills' purposes is not how good the Titans are. It's how good these other 5 or 7 teams around them are. And the Bills are going to see all of them. They're not going to see Cincinnati, I guess, or Jacksonville. But you're playing Denver, you're playing the Chargers, you're playing the Chiefs, you're playing the Ravens, you're playing New England twice, you're playing Houston week 1. That's 7 of your games. It's going to be hot. It's going to be really interesting to see that play out. I mean, it always is for different reasons. I'll say this. There are years, the last few years, a lot of my thinking about the season has been, well, they'll make it, and then what? And it's about the draw, the bye, ideally, and the bounces once we get there. I'm not really, for 2 reasons, I'm not kind of thinking that way this year. One is that the stadium is brand new, and the stadium is a big story for the fans, for the team even. Like, that's kind of what I'm always distracted about is, okay, so what is it like in there, and just how much of an adjustment that is. But then it's also that I don't see a cakewalk, and a couple of these seasons have been that. Even with New England passing them last year, they were still never really under any duress to get in. It was just going to be about trying to run New England down, which they ultimately could not do. Thanks, Tony. I'm Mike Schopp at 803-0550. Sal in less than 20 minutes from Cleveland. This is WGR. I'm trying to find this last place fantasy punishment video I just watched, but I mistakenly hit the home button here and went back to the top, so I've got to dig for it. Here we go, from The Ringer. For all the fantasy football I play, I'm not in a single league that punishes last place, except if you count it for leagues that basically fine the last place player, like you have to pay for the website, or you pay for, the winner's entry fee or something like that. Not that the winner should need your money. Anything money related, I guess I can't say I'm in no leagues without something. But you have that famous Waffle House one, and I love the one where you have to take the SAT. I love that because, like I've said many times about it, I would feel like I have to try, which means I'd probably go to some Saturday morning class to prepare for it like a junior in high school would. Things like that. Here's a new one to me that's talked about on this Ringer podcast. Guy says that, maybe I should know who it is, but I don't. Guy says that his league mates dropped him off 10,000 meters away from a bar. 10 kilometers. You run a 10K, you know about how far that is if you're a good runner. They dropped him off 10 kilometers away from the bar. Then they all went to the bar and used his credit card for as long as they could until he showed up. I don't think there's any rule here necessarily that the person has to run the 10K or even just walk it. Maybe you're probably not allowed to get an Uber, I would think. That kind of defeats the premise. If you can just sort of text your girlfriend and she drives you to the bar and then he's there in 5 minutes and nobody's even had their first drink yet. Probably not. I'm guessing that's banned. But that's a new one to me. 10,000 meters away, and the person has to get to the place to get his credit card back. And, these kinds of things, by the way, too, need it be said, no holds barred on the spending. Just like that steak league I'm in. If you win the steak league, you'd better get the appetizers, the cocktail, the wine, the salad, the sides. Like, that's almost incumbent upon you to do that. If you just feel bad about winning and you go to the steak draft having won and you just get, a hamburger, you should get kicked out. We want to pay you. That's the whole point. You won. Act like it. I don't want to break you. This is what I signed up for. Let's go. I'm due to lose in that thing, by the way. We'll see what happens. Sal Capaccio next.
Joint practice day for the Buffalo Bills is in the books as they are in Cleveland working with the Browns today. Before practice, it was a bit of a lengthy unofficial injury report for the Bills. Ty Johnson, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Skylar Bell, Dante Pettis, Connor McGovern, Ed Oliver, CJ Gardner-Johnson, and Jalen Kilgore all either were not able to participate at all or were not taking part in team activities. In the Barnes Firm Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8 million. Following practice, we did hear from a number of players, including quarterback Josh Allen, who talked the benefits of being able to participate in a joint practice.
You get to go against defense that you haven't seen in a non-game-like atmosphere. In practice, you seem to take more risks. The defense will take more risks too. So to get those live bullets and to see something, get your checks, understand how guys are moving, it's really awesome.
We'll get more on today coming up in just a moment as Sal Capaccio will join the show next, so do stay tuned for that. And speaking of joint practices, both the Cowboys and Saints have been fined $500,000 today due to fights in their practice earlier this week. 2 preseason games tonight. Vegas at Houston. Kickoff at 8 o'clock for that one. And for Vegas, first overall pick Fernando Mendoza is expected to play the first half with Aiden O'Connell getting the second half at quarterback. And then at 10, the Chargers. They play host to the 49ers. And in baseball, Bison's home to Lehigh Valley. First pitch for that one at 6:35. Earlier this afternoon, the Blue Jays took down the Rays 5-1. And coming up at also 6:35, the Yankees are at Baltimore. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Real quick, it was just hit me. So Mike Tomlin is out in Pittsburgh. He'll be on NBC. And he's replaced by Mike McCarthy. How many times in NFL history has a coach lost a Super Bowl to his eventual replacement? Wonder if that's happened before. Probably there's better chance of it happening than the other way around. Like Green Bay beat Pittsburgh in, I think, 2010, that season, and it was McCarthy versus Tomlin. Now McCarthy is replacing Tomlin. I wonder if that's a first. Who would know? Bulldog is not here. You're right. Bulldog would know. He is not here. Sal Capaccio is, in a manner of speaking. Sal joins me on the West Her hotline from Cleveland. Sal, today read like a great day, was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great day for work for these two teams. I thought it was a great day for the Bills offense. And, specifically the tight ends, they were tremendous today, I thought. Josh Allen was good. I don't believe I saw him throw an interception today. I didn't see anything that, it's tough to watch everything going on at the same time. And I thought the defense wasn't as good as the offense. They were fine. They were probably it was pretty even, I think, between the Bills defense and the Browns offense. But more than anything, really none of the nonsense that we've seen throughout the stuff we talked about, just didn't happen. That was great. Today was a good day for getting a practice in.
What did you see or hear along the lines of cooperation or coordination between the two teams and coaches?
I think that they just basically decided how they want to, structure everything with, So
in advance.
7-on-7. Yeah, in advance. 7-on-7, 11-11. They don't just show up and start practicing, right? You have to have a script. You have to have it's the same thing as when you're at your own facility and you talk with your assistant coaches and you give them a script for the day, and this is what we're doing for the first 15 minutes. This is what we're doing for the next 5 minutes. It's the same thing. So however they did it, I don't know if they got together at a local restaurant recently or they did a Zoom call.
Yep.
But that obviously was coordinated, that everybody knew exactly when the air horn went. Everybody kind of knew, okay, we're over on this field now, and we're over on that field now. We're going, 7-on-7 or 2-minute drill or something like that.
One thing that hit me was watching a couple of highlights from you is that there was a pretty good, loud reaction to things. And I think my understanding was that fans were not there. So this would have all been from the players.
Yes, there were no fans. There was like corporate fans. You know how you have that sometimes? They just give out VIPs. There weren't many of those though. But the stands were there's actual makeshift stands, the auxiliary stands, the bleachers. They were empty. Just some of the media sitting there. Same thing on the other side. It was the players. They were very energetic today, and that's what you get in a lot of these. a lot of times, especially when it's players who are fighting for jobs, players who aren't going to see maybe, making the roster. And people know that, but they can see them. Their teammates can see them fighting to survive in the NFL, and they make a play, and it's a big deal. Like, oh my God, that's great, and you're giving them love because you've been the guy going against them for the last 3 weeks, and then finally you see them make a play in a big spot for them, and that really makes you feel good.
I'll get it in now before I forget again. Training camp coverage on WGR presented by Fiegel Car and Joyce, your border attorneys, and brought to you by Outlet Liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? Finally, the Barnes Firm car crash. You've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. What for you was the highlight of the day?
Dalton Kincaid. He was just wide. The tight ends. I'll say the tight ends. I think Jackson Hawes I thought he had 2 touchdowns. Dawson Knox corrected me and said he had 3 touchdowns, Jackson Hawes today, in different periods. But the tight ends were tremendous today. And I don't know. I just got a text from my buddy John Harris, who you talked to. He's the sideline guy for the Texans. And he just said, oh, my God, I'm watching what's going on in Cleveland today. Did the Browns just forget that Dalton Kincaid was on the field the whole day? They never covered him. I mean, he was wide open the whole time, it seemed like. So I just thought that was the best I saw today, was how the Bills were able to incorporate their tight ends for big plays, down the field, touchdowns. And to be honest with you, you kind of had to, because you were down 4 receivers again today.
Yeah.
No Keon Coleman, no Khalil Shakir, no Skylar Bell. DJ Moore did play. He did take reps, but nothing down the field. It was to me, it was very intentional that they kept him underneath. They kept him on shorter routes. They didn't want him overexerting himself or anything like that. Dante Pettis was out today. Add another one to the list. So the tight ends had to be big.
What's going on with Shakir?
We don't know. We don't get updates from Joe Brady other than they're progressing, or they're dealing with a lower body injury or something like that. We don't know anything on him. Brady does not have to give any injury updates until 2 weeks from now. When Wednesday comes around in the week before the opener, there has to be an injury status report. There has to be an injury update, injury report each day, as you know, starting Wednesday. Right now, there's several guys injured. The guys I just mentioned at wide receiver. You still have Ty Johnson out. You still have C.J. Gardner-Johnson out. Nobody knows exactly what's wrong. You could speculate, or maybe we found out through other sources or channels. But the Bills don't have to tell you anything right now.
Understood. Shakir has been missing for how long? At least approximately. Can you say? Do you know?
2 days.
2 days.
He played Saturday in the preseason game.
Yep. And then something happened.
He wasn't out there on
now.
Tuesday. That's
okay.
Right.
Yesterday I talked to Daryl Ryder in Cleveland. 92.3 The Fan.
He's here with me. We're going to do something together here in a little while after I'm done with you. So.
Well, one thing I was going to mention from that conversation was sort of like a sense of the Browns' defense. It was maybe the last question I asked him. And he basically said, we'll find out tomorrow. The Bills come in or went into Cleveland as, what they've been in the league in the last several years, and the Browns are just trying to find their way. And I think maybe he was trying to get across that today was important to measuring. This is reasonable, of course, in measuring what the Browns look like on defense, if not on offense, too.
I heard that conversation, and I expected the Bills' defense to dominate the Browns' offense, and I expected the Bills' offense to have a bit of a struggle. It was actually the reverse.
Yeah.
The Bills' offense, to me, dominated the Browns' defense today, and the Bills' defense was very even with the Browns' offense. I thought that the Browns' offense made some plays, and they also gave away some plays to the Bills. It felt to me like when things got a little bit more chaotic, like in the red zone in 2 minutes, that's when the Browns broke down. And that's what Daryl was saying. Like, the operation of the offense just can get discombobulated, and that's what we saw today. When it was just, hey, they're out there, they're going at the 20-yard line, the normal play, first down, the Browns made some plays. And I thought the Bills had a few times where they could have been better. But once things started to get a little bit more crunch time, clock management, things like that, it felt like the Browns' offense came apart a little bit.
Would you say that specifically of Watson? Would you include him in that? I mean, he's the quarterback, not on every play, but right?
I thought it was more Sanders from that, but Watson as well. To me, Watson was actually better than Sanders today from what I saw, but it was. I mean, there was no real difference when that happened either way. It felt like when either of them were on the field, they didn't finish the job. You know what I mean? Like, there were a couple times where it felt like they should have scored, and the Bills kind of stopped them, whether it was 2 minute or red zone, because they just kind of quite couldn't finish the job.
I mentioned this recently. I watched a minute of the Browns-Bears game when maybe the Bills were in a commercial or something on Saturday. And there was this one situation where there was a long delay at Soldier Field. The Browns had the ball. There was this long delay about a ball spot. And they eventually did bring out the chains. And the announcers were like, wow, I didn't know they would even still do this. But it was minutes. And then I think what happened was they marked the Browns barely short. Watson ran a sneak. And then the next play, they got a delay of game or had to call a timeout. Like, these are just the kinds of things that used to drive us insane about the Bills. Like, okay, you don't have the cannon for an arm. You're not a 4.4 40 runner, but you got to know the other stuff. You got to know the logistics, the mechanics at the position. And when a veteran messes that up, not that that happened today, but I'm thinking about the preseason game, that's, I think, really glaring. You know, you don't want to see veteran quarterbacks in these situations really struggle with, like, getting plays off, for example.
No, I agree with that. They have to make decisions, and they're going to have to make a decision on who's going to start. And I agree with what Daryl said yesterday, because I listened to that conversation on my drive up over here. And his premise was, look, if they're both even, you go with the young guy, because what are you doing? Why would you go with Watson? If they're even, you go with Sanders. You got to let him develop. Otherwise, you get halfway through the year, all the way through the year, and you wasted development on him when he could have been playing, and for what was it worth if you're not winning, actually, and who knows if they're going to do that. But that said, he obviously, with Deshaun's contract, I just wonder if other factors are at play there, and that's, he winds up, even if they're even, getting the nod there. So there's a lot that they have to decide and cipher through, and I'll tell you this, just talking with people around here, I'm just glad that we're not dealing with that, and we don't have to deal with that with Josh Allen now and knowing who he is and coming to town. Matt Bove and I just did a podcast, and we're sitting here, and I'm still under the hospitality tent actually looking over the field. And we did it here, and next to us, I think Tony Grossi, is that who covers the team? I think that was him who was over here. And he was doing a podcast with somebody, and either him or somebody else, basically the way they summed up today, we heard them, and Matt's like, yep, that's exactly right. The way they summed it up on their podcast was, today was very notable and noticeable that the Bills have Josh Allen and the Browns don't. That's what they said, and it's right.
I mean, that's 2/3 of Bills games, isn't it? It's a lot of their season. We had Miami for years. It's sort of as simple as that sometimes. Sal Capaccio in Cleveland for the Bills and Browns today. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off. One counterpoint to the Watson debate would be the players in the room. Now, this basically, the premise would have to be that the veteran is better. And sure, the team would have obvious incentives to play the kid. But if you're starting the season and you're playing the second best guy because he's younger, then that would maybe not go over that great. So I don't know if that's really been true. Most of what I've heard from Cleveland this year is that Watson is shaky and still just not good anymore. But if you didn't have that, I think you might, a new coach especially, right? What is he trying to impart there, Todd Monken? Go with the veterans until basically you don't have any choice. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. You got to know who your team is and where you are, right,
Yeah.
in your timeline. I just think that there's a lot to be considered whenever you have these decisions, whether it's quarterback or any other position. Veterans, you go with them and you ride it out and say, okay, it's our best chance to win. But at some time, I think you have to decide, who you are and where you are building your team. And he's a first-year head coach. I think he has some grace. Maybe not. We've seen first-year head coaches get fired, right? So that could happen. But generally, a first-year head coach can have a little grace. Look, he's in a different situation than Brady, obviously, right? He's taking over a team that doesn't have all these great expectations. Joe Brady's taking over a team that's expected to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, they're the AFC favorites, for crying out loud. And he's replacing a guy. And the only reason he's replacing him is because the team feels that they need to take the next step, which is Super Bowl. Todd Monken's replacing a whole bunch of coaches just couldn't get off the mat. They couldn't win games. I mean, anything he gives them. So, I don't know. I would go back and forth on that philosophy on how to do it. I don't think it's an easy thing to do. And then look what the Dolphins are doing right now. It's probably better for them in the long run what they're doing, and which is stripping everything down to the studs essentially. They think it'll be better for them. But Mike, I remember having conversations with you over the years about the Browns having all these draft picks and how they're set up. But it doesn't matter if you don't cultivate it correctly, right? It doesn't matter if you don't pick the right players, develop them correctly, and they just haven't been able to do that.
Wait, are you saying that hasn't worked out in Cleveland?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
what I'm
you're
saying. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
let me ponder that before we go too much
No,
further.
and again, it doesn't have. It can. Like, you could have a lot of draft picks, and you hit on the right quarterback. It's going to fix everything, right? We know that. A lot of that can just be luck. And if they, I guess, what are they calling it here? The March for Arch, right? For Arch Manning, whether that's going to work or not, I don't know. Right? That's what it's called, and that can happen. But over the years, whether it's the Jets or the Browns or anyone, you collect all these draft picks, you're set up 3 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders. I went back and looked. I mean, you go to the 18 draft for the Browns, it's pretty good. They have these guys, Baker Mayfield's there, and they get him, and Nick Chubb is in that draft, right? They have Myles Garrett, right before that. And, they're starting to build it. They have all these draft picks, and then they have a couple injuries. That's part of it. But they just didn't cultivate it and didn't develop a lot of the players. And then suddenly happens a guy leaves because of a contract situation. The quarterback falls apart a little bit, and then you're back at square one.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to relitigate. That's all fair. The quarterback is King Kong. I mean,
of course,
he just, if it doesn't work out, he's basically stepping on the city, and the city is to ruins. And if he's Allen, it's what I think about often, Sal, with respect to other teams, and they're often the same teams always. Cleveland, the Jets, the list. How the Bills were one of those teams, or they were seen as that when Allen showed up, and Allen wasn't immediate. Like, it was a year or two before, oh, my God, this guy, the Bills have him and we don't. So you would not have thought of the Bills as a team that a prospect could have just walked into and just had it made. They were the opposite of that, or closer to the opposite of that, I would say, in fairness. But then, poof, you have the quarterback is a magic man, and, you're kind of all set at that point. But, we just know how important the position is all to whatever that equation really is. Do you think from Joe Brady today, this is my bet, nobody plays Saturday, right? The starters?
I doubt it. I think after today, Mike, they got a lot of good work in today. I doubt the starters play. He didn't commit. He just said, ideally, you get a good day in today and you don't have to do that.
And that happened, right? You're saying that happened.
I believe so. I think today was an excellent day for, again, all the things that we talked about, like the fights, the nonsense, and how do you control it and you don't, and you have Jim Leonard saying, I want to see physicality, and you're like, okay, what's going to happen here? I thought today was excellent. There was none of that. I mean, minor pushing and shoving here and there that lasted very, very quickly, and it was dispersed. And then there was just some trash talk, and that's the extent of it. Otherwise, I thought it was a great day for practice. They went a full 2 hours too. Well, I shouldn't say. They went about an hour and 50.
You said that you were a little surprised that the Bills' defense didn't kind of dominate the Browns.
Yeah.
Why not? What was it? I saw a couple of KC Concepcion highlights that looked pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I talked to him, by the way, and I asked him if he thought he'd become a Bill. He said, yeah. He said if he got down to that pick, he thought the Bills were going to take him. So for whatever that's worth, I'll make sure people have that quote out there. But I sent that into the station if you guys want to hear it. And yeah, he got loose on one for sure. I think that was Watson who threw that ball. And then I think there was another one I didn't see, but yeah, he had a couple of highlights, and he's a nice player for them. And the reason why I just felt that the Bills weren't, I'm going to say aggressive enough. Maybe they were aggressive a couple times that they just weren't close enough to make a play on a receiver or on a ball. Now, there were a couple of times. Jordan Hancock had an interception. Towards the end, Max Hairston made a great play in the end zone to stop a touchdown during a 2-minute drill. Like, they had their moments, no doubt. Greg Rousseau had a sack, and that whole 2-minute sequence I was talking about earlier where they couldn't finish the deal, the Browns, a lot of that stuff was happening. But at the end of the day, I thought the Browns made, a few more plays than I would like to see them make against the Bills defense.
I like that you talked to Concepcion. Did you talk about Rochester with him?
A little bit, not a ton. I just asked him about being from Rochester, and he was talking about how the Bills would have been his hometown team, obviously, but we didn't get too much into it. I only had him for a second, but he definitely said that he thought that he might be going to Buffalo.
Also, would you agree with that, or would you know? I'm not sure you would know, but that was 2 picks before the Bills were up in that draft, and they end up trading down with Houston and then trading out of the first round ultimately. Do you think they would have done this had the Browns not taken him?
Oh, boy. It feels like they wouldn't have. It feels like they kind of didn't want to do that in this draft. They went out and they got DJ Moore.
Yeah. Defense.
And I don't – because that was this year, right? This is this draft we're talking about. This draft. Jeez, man, it runs together. I feel like they wouldn't have used their top, trade asset and their top draft pick on a wide receiver. Like, I know that he would have been kind of a guy they considered, and you never know. Maybe he just was highest rated on the board. They would have done that. I just never got the sense after trading for DJ Moore they would have done that.
I agree. And it was a little bit early, as I remember it, with Concepcion going 24. I mean, 3 receivers had already gone, and then you got to Omar Cooper, who was talked about some, and some other guys. So it was a little bit, it was seen, I think, mostly as being a little bit early. But very exciting sounding player. Like, I don't know if the Browns, that'll be the trick, of course. I mean, at least for this year, is if the Browns can sort of hold up and pay off a receiver like this. I mean, maybe it's a little bit like Watkins here, where I don't know. But the guy sounds like he's good enough.
Yeah, I think he sounds to me like he's fitting in from everybody I've heard here. He's doing a really nice job. And he made a couple plays today. So, good on him. And, we'll see where it goes with him. But I thought overall, the Bills' defense, like I said, made some plays, had some plays against, where I thought the offense clearly won the day against the Browns' defense.
I know what you said about Shakir, and maybe this is essentially asking you the same question, but Ed Oliver, anything?
No, he wasn't even – we didn't see him today, Mike. Shakir we saw. C.J. Gardner-Johnson we saw. Skylar Bell actually came out with a helmet on and did some work with an athletic trainer on the side. Did not see Ed Oliver at all today. I do not know if he made the trip or not.
Okay. Do you have, maybe for fans who could be wondering this, or even myself, talking about Concepcion, that's a first-round pick in Cleveland. That'd be a story. That'd be a player we'd talk about every day if we were here. How about, Elam Zara has been one name you've talked about a lot. Rookies or maybe lesser-known Bills players that are sort of popping for you? A couple?
Well, I think Kenai Walker, a guy that you saw make that interception last week, he's one for sure.
All right.
And he's starting to, gain some traction as a real option to make the team. He's an undrafted free agent. So, he looks the part. He's long. He's athletic. I think that's somebody that they really like having. Trying to think who else could. Oh, I was standing in the end zone today. It was great, Mike. Like, we could be right on the field, and the video you saw, like, we got to film everything today. And I didn't get video of this, but Ian Wheeler, the running back, they got this kid from the UFL, the United League or XFL, I guess, whatever it was. There's so many of these now. And he caught a pass, and he just trucked a guy. He was physical, and he just ran him over. And doing the pod with Matt a little while ago, Matt believes he has jumped Frank Gore Jr. in the pecking order. And the reason why this is significant is we don't know about Ty Johnson's injury right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have to think about a third running back and keeping somebody on the ready, I think Ian Wheeler right now is starting to get into that conversation.
Ian Wheeler, I have to look it up myself, the most valuable player of the United Bowl this year.
Yes, exactly.
Playing for, I think maybe that's Louisville. So there's a guy to know. Yeah, Ty Johnson's been out for almost all of it, right? Camp?
No, he got hurt. No, he got hurt in the open practice.
Okay. So
he went down in the red and blue scrimmage, the red and blue game in Buffalo, and then he missed. So it's been a little over a week.
Right, 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks Saturday.
2 weeks.
Right?
Sorry, 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Tomorrow there's nothing for you to cover.
Nothing tomorrow to cover, and then Saturday will be the game at 1 p.m. at the stadium.
Perfect opportunity for a Buffalo-Cleveland Media Fantasy League draft, don't you think? You don't have to stop at 1.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be happening, but I'll still be out here in Cleveland.
All right. Let me know if you need help putting that together.
All right, you got it.
Thank you, Sal.
All right, you got it, man. Thanks.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline from Cleveland. Bills and Browns out there today. His appearances on WGR brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case. Outlet Liquor. What's your outlet? I'll put it the same way. Joe Brady got away with it last week with his starters, and it wasn't super smooth, the hits you're seeing Allen take, and then DJ Moore coming up a little bit lame at one point, but no problem. With this today, it just seems like that's enough. You have what everybody talked about in a positive way, this more intense physical matchup between the Bills and an actual opponent. Saturday, probably take it easy. That's when, so Ian Wheeler, for one, right? That's when a guy like that can become, which we kind of get almost every year around here, somebody, it's usually a running back or a wide receiver, somebody that the fans watch and go, hey, this, I mean, it was the rugby player the one time, right, who broke the long run in the preseason game, maybe against the Colts. There's always seems to be somebody. And maybe this is it. And it could be a wide receiver too, because they have so many injuries at that position. But without Josh Allen, I don't know how much really of a chance there is to see that. I mean, probably I think you would get, I don't know this, but with the Browns having what sounds like a quarterback competition, maybe one or both of those guys would play against the Bills to try to, get that much closer. The last time the Bills had what they called a quarterback competition, that's back with Peterman and Allen and who was it? A.J. McCarron maybe was the third guy. Like, they shared time in the preseason, and they were one of them was kind of always out there, it seemed at least, or at least to start. So would the Browns just bail on the whole thing and neither guy plays against the Bills? Maybe not. But I would be really stunned if the Bills did likewise and their starters saw the field at all. They already have, listen to the injury list. I mean, they already have, more than 10 names on it. You don't want to get too carried away. 803-0550 to join me, talking about not so much what happens on Saturday, but what happens in the rest of 2026 with them. Here for fantasy stuff, too. We've talked a little bit about league punishments for last place. I had Brad with me, and I was with Brad a couple of times earlier this week talking about his auction thing coming up on Saturday. That sounds like a great time. Always ready to go on that. This is Mike Schopp, Bulldog, back on Monday. You're listening to WGR.
Joint practice day for the Buffalo Bills is in the books. They were in Cleveland getting work done with the Browns ahead of their game on Saturday in Cleveland. Before practice, we got a lengthy unofficial injury list for the Bills. Ty Johnson, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Skylar Bell, Dante Pettis, Connor McGovern, Ed Oliver, CJ Gardner-Johnson, and Jalen Kilgore all did either not take part in team work or were just not out there at all today. And the Barnes Firm Injury Report is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Car crash, you've got to call the Barnes Firm, 1-800-8-million. For more on today, though, Sal Capaccio has videos up at his Twitter, at Sal Sports, and he'll also have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com, shortly for more on today. Speaking of joint practices, both the Cowboys and Saints have been fined $500,000 due to fights in their practice earlier this week. And then in the preseason, we've got 2 games tonight. Vegas at Houston. Kickoff for that one is at 8. And first overall pick, Fernando Mendoza, is expected to play the first half, with Aiden O'Connell getting the second half at quarterback. And then at 10, the Chargers, they host the 49ers. While in baseball, Bison's home to Lehigh Valley. First pitch at 6:35 for that one. Blue Jays had some early afternoon action. They took down the Tampa Bay Rays 5-1. And coming up also at 6:35, the Yankees. They are at Baltimore. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Just trying to let the game come to me as much as possible and not trying to force too many things to happen. I don't want to be running over linebackers either, so that doesn't happen too often. Sometimes, again, the game calls for something like that to happen, and I'm just trying to be the best teammate that I can be, the best quarterback that I can be, and sometimes that's what you're called to do, but definitely don't want to make a living of doing those things and just trying to, again, like I said, let the game come to you.
Josh Allen sharing the field today with Deshaun Watson. That takes you back to Allen's first playoff appearance. And it's Watson and the Texans that take out the Bills in overtime, right? That game? Yeah. Duke Johnson. There was a Duke Johnson play for Houston in that game, wasn't there? There was Tywan Jones and there was Duke Johnson, both of whom graced us with their respective presence here in future years. Or maybe Tywan Jones had already been here. I think that's right, by the time of that playoff game. What have we got? Bills playoff history. So let's go by quarterback. I'm going to have to call this up. I'm not the man I used to be at this. But Watson is their first, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, their first playoff opponent in 2019. They lose there. Let me just get this going. I know there are some fun names on this list. I know Mason Rudolph. Andrew's always whining about Mason Rudolph, getting him off the Steelers, and he's still on the Steelers. So we've got Watson in 19, and then 2020 Colts is going to be Rivers. He comes back, but that's Rivers. The next week's Lamar Jackson. That's the Taron Johnson play. And then Mahomes. 21, you've got Mac Jones. So the Bills have wins here over Phillip Rivers. It's kind of funny. Lamar Jackson, that's good. Mac Jones, lose to Mahomes. Then it's Skylar Thompson for Miami in the 22 wild card. In a close game, but the Bills dominated in the stats, just turnovers. Then Burrow. They lose to Burrow. 23, that's Mason Rudolph for Pittsburgh. The playoff game that got moved because of weather. That's Mason Rudolph, confirmed. Then they lose to Mahomes. Okay, 24 is Bo Nix. Then Jackson again, the 2-point conversion fail at the end for Baltimore. Then Mahomes. And now Trevor Lawrence. That's a good name on your bedpost, so to speak, is Lawrence. You got Lawrence. You got Jackson on here twice. You've got Nix, a young Nix. It's not all just Mason Rudolph's and Skylar Thompson's. Just texting with Jeremy about Arsenal. Tomorrow, the first game of the Premier League season. Arsenal and Coventry City. Jeremy says he can't wait. He says everybody is expecting them to repeat. All right, so I guess I expect them to repeat now. I'm going to root against it. I've never seen my Everton come close to even like Europe, as they say, the top 4 or 5 spots. I mean, for a while last year, they might have been a little bit close, but really, we go through these seasons. They're just kind of there. They built a new stadium. There's no playoffs. It's fine. But there's really not. It's really just about beating Liverpool for Everton for me, because that's their big in-town rival, and that's Joe. Love to beat Joe. Do they have, does Jeremy would know, he's the founder of the preseason pledge. Do they have that in soccer? Did he have to take a preseason pledge and just sort of take a blind eye to everything Arsenal did here in their friendlies leading up to tomorrow? I wonder. They had some, you guys might know what this is, the Shield. What did I watch last week for a minute against Man City?
I think it's the Community Shield.
What do they get? A shield?
I think literally, yeah. I think it's kind of like the Bundesliga, because their trophy is literally that. It's either, you can call it a plate or a big shield. I think it's the same thing.
It's just one game?
Yeah, it's just one game. It's the FA Cup winner and the Premier League winner.
And they get an advantage in the next physical challenge. That also, by the way, for winning this, they should get to use one goal whenever they want, at least one. Whenever they want to use it during the season, they get to sort of just add a goal to their total by virtue of winning that shield. The preseason pledge. It's a good one. And we're going to want it on Saturday, especially if anything goes bad. We might need it as a shield, the preseason pledge. If they do really well, then you're going to get, right or wrong, you're going to get, hey guys, that Ian Wheeler should be on the roster. And I'm not saying I won't agree with you. I love this for a running back. It really is sort of fantasy adjacent. When a running back, undrafted free agent, make him as obscure as you want. Ian Wheeler, Sal just brought him up. United Football League, played at Howard University. Not drafted. Looks good. Trucked a guy. We get to Saturday, he plays, at least half the game, right? We're not going to need James Cook. We don't have Ty Johnson. Ian Wheeler, Frank Gore. Sal said Ian Wheeler is ahead of Frank Gore. So maybe he's your starter on Saturday. He pops one. Bam. 64-yard touchdown. Ian Wheeler, 7-0. Okay. I love this because I will never be dragged away from the, to me, logical theory that almost any running back could do it. Not literally any running back, but that there's really just not that much of a gap between, maybe not like Christian McCaffrey in his prime. Last year was pretty close to his prime. Not the Hall of Fame level. But, most guys after that. James Cook has moved up these charts. He has moved up from sub back to NFL. They'll never take that rushing title away from him. So we're not talking Hall of Fame yet or anything, but he's trending the right way. He's on a good career path. They lose James Cook, what happens? Well, you have Ian Wheeler or Ray Davis, of course, not to ignore him. But I just kind of always tend to think that can work. If you lost, and this is what is fantasy adjacent about it, of course, Allen, but if you lost an elite receiver, whoever led the Jackson Smith and Jigba, whoever led the NFL in receiving yards last year, it would be JSN, I'm pretty sure. You're doomed. They're not taking a receiver out of the United Football League and putting him on the field in place of JSN and getting anything close to the same. I think running back, that can and does happen. And I think at wide receiver, it's next to impossible. And at quarterback, it's at least as next to impossible as it is as receiver. The preseason pledge, is there a joint practice pledge where you're not allowed to put stock in anything that happened today? Well, that's Ian Wheeler, apparently, that run that Sal mentioned. I'll admit to one thing. Today adds to it. Josh Allen, we know there's no debate about anything. James Cook, we know. He's obviously their running back. He does come off the field more than some guys, but he's done great. No questions asked. James Cook. DJ Moore. Well, we're kind of watching to see what and listening to what that sounds like with DJ Moore. We had one peek at him at the preseason game against Carolina, and there were highlights. He had, 3 for 61? He had a couple of big plays for the Bills. So that looked good. But I'm not leaving my spot on DJ Moore, which is like, this is fine. He's likely even to help the offense. He gives them what they don't have. But can he be amazing? I don't know. I don't expect him to be amazing. So I'm really not. Some of my friends are. I mean, the fantasy people, I've mentioned this week a couple of times, were like, that looked good. Maybe he's not washed. Maybe, there's a connection with Allen, and that can really be something. I think some of these guys have wanted to push DJ Moore up a little bit from the game on Saturday. I'm sort of mostly the same. The preseason pledge. Are there exceptions? The one I'm sort of feeling a little bit like I'm weak, and it's not because I've been betting against the guy or anything like that, but I'm starting to feel the Kincaid thing a little bit. And not for the first time today did Sal start the conversation about what he saw with Dalton Kincaid. What did you like? Dalton Kincaid, the tight ends, all these touchdowns. I mean, that's starting to add up. It's starting to pile up, these Kincaid reports. And really, you will always have the injury history point. You can't really do anything with it. It's not a prediction that he'll get hurt or that he won't. You can't really do anything with it. But it's part of his story. But his being on the field and healthy and putting up highlights, there was a day early in camp. What is early in camp? The camp was so short. The whole thing was all camp was early in camp. There was a day where he got injured a little bit, and Twitter was right away to, leg injury. Then Kincaid went and said he just got hit in a tough spot and, no biggie. And either that very day or the next day, there was Sal again with Dalton Kincaid. So that pledge, I don't know if it's Jeremy's call, if that applies to joint practices and training camp, or is it just games? I guess I'll have to ask him, but I'm softening. I don't even like saying that because I was never out on Kincaid. I just felt that there wasn't really room for him to be a big producer, and then he kind of looked like he was about to be one, and then he get hurt. A little bit of it is what I talked about a couple hours ago with Shakir being out. There's more of a chance if that lasts. I'm not sure. No one knows. But if that were to happen, that would open up for Brady more opportunities for Kincaid and for everyone else, by the way. But I think he would be the one if they were to have to play without Shakir or even choose to, right? I know that's crazy, right? But if that were to happen, Kincaid is the guy where I'd want to bump him way up. And whether or not it's Shakir related, you're hearing a lot of good things from him. We'll see about Saturday. I'm guessing nobody plays except Ian Wheeler. He'll be the only guy out there. But, that's kind of how it's felt going back to last week. Then we'll get to Cleveland, have the joint practice, and then we'll back off a little bit. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off until Monday. Tomorrow, Sam Panayotovich, Ian Hartitz will join. And we'll see if Sal wants to, but I know it's not a day where there's going to be anything new from the Bills. At least we expect that. Thanks for listening. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. 2 games in the NFL preseason tonight. I'm assuming they'll be on NFL Network, but I don't know. It might be, if they are, like last week, when one of their games was at 7, another was at 9, and they just got to the second one when they were done with the first one. But I don't know. I'm hoping at least I can see somebody. Vegas and Houston. Bills week 1 opponent, Houston. Then 49ers, Chargers. The Texans, I read the other day, were planning on playing starters against the Raiders, but changed their mind when Jaden Higgins got hurt, if not for other reasons too, and just decided not worth it. So those are the 2 games tonight. There was a baseball game today that seems pretty insane. Cardinals, Reds. So let me see if I can get this right, having not seen it, but just read a little bit about it. The Reds are leading 5-4 in the 9th, 2 outs, and the Cardinals hit a fly ball to left center. The outfielders get a little bit confused, and the center fielder drops it to give the Cardinals the lead. So it would have been the last out. Reds win. Instead, a 2-run error. The Cardinals go on to score 4 more runs in the inning to go up 10-4 in the 9th. Or 10-5, rather, because it was 5-4 Reds. So now it's 10-5. The Reds get 4 back and have the bases loaded when I think it might have been McLean flies to the wall to end it. 10-9 is the final. St. Louis. From OptaStats, Cincinnati's Brock Burke became the only major league pitcher since earned runs have been officially tracked in both the AL and NL, 1913, to enter the game in the 9th inning or later and finish with this line: no earned runs, 6 runs, 2 hits. I'm eager to find out what the rest of it was. Where they just walk, they hit somebody, did they just walk a bunch of people? I mean, I guess there were 2 hits, but 6 runs, all unearned, 2 hits. A first for any pitcher since at least 1913 entering the game in the 9th inning or later. And then Cincinnati, just to make it that much worse, gets 4 runs back to lose by 1. Think of the bettors, too. The -1.5 people. You have St. Louis -1.5. I don't know if they were favored, but say you did. And they're up 4-0 into the 7th, or the 6th, rather. It's your day. Cincinnati gets 5, so you're kind of dead. Now it's the 9th inning, and there's the fly ball to win the game. Dropped 2 runs, but it's still not -1.5. It's 6-5. Then you get 4 more. You can't believe your luck. You're already spending the money. And then Cincinnati gets 4 back, and you lose. Oh. If that was a bet you could have made, that was a ride right there, and not a fun one in the end. Maybe we'll bring that up with Sam tomorrow. St. Louis 10, Cincinnati 9. Yankees at Orioles at 6:30. They've won the first 2 games there. My chat with Ben Albright from Denver coming your way next. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.